Am I the a-hole for forcing my fiancé into cutting off his late wife's family? I, 25F, am getting married to my fiancé, 29M, in May. When we first got together, he told me that he was married from 20 to 22 years old to his high school sweetheart. We met when he was 25, but she passed away from sepsis due to a botched surgery. He didn't cope well and stayed in contact with her family, namely her father and two sisters, aged 19 and 24. It was a sensitive issue for me for a while at the beginning because there was so much history they had that we would not share, and it was difficult knowing that she was all around him. I never told him and decided to work through it on my own, especially with the fact that he would often spend time with her family during our relationship. Her birthday, their anniversary, and the anniversary of her death. He'd spend the day with her family. It was uncomfortable at first knowing the man I loved was reminiscing about a love he had with someone else, but I kept trying to see it from his perspective, and over the last couple of years I have become completely secure in our relationship, and it doesn't bother me much anymore. Well, he proposed to me around this time last year, and I was over the moon. I love this man with all my heart, but I recently learned that he never told them that we got engaged. I've been trying new local coffee shops the past few months rather than my usual place and tried a new one. His late wife's sister worked there, and other than being awkward, she did a double take of my engagement ring and looked really unhappy. I didn't mention it and left. My fiancé told me that she kept messaging him on social media about it, and I wasn't happy that he kept it a secret. He apologized and was very depleted by it all. He said that he didn't want to hide me, but didn't want to hurt them either, and that both of us were a huge part of his life. I understand that and let him off the hook slightly. I just told him to be upfront with them from now on. That was that. At least I thought so. A week ago on Sunday, I received a message from the 24-year-old asking if I was pleased with myself, that I would never replace his LW, late wife, and that if she were still alive, he'd choose her over me every time. She even mentioned that he only kept me around for my money and as something to stick his dick in. I ignored it, but I can't say it didn't affect me. When you're in my situation, all these comments are ones you have to work through, and it's not easy to overcome those insecurities. It feels like a punch in the teeth when they're used against you. I mentioned it to him, and he comforted and reassured me. He said he'd set boundaries with her and that I'd never have to hear from her again. Fine by me. That was until I found my car with whore and grave robber smeared in red paint. I had saved for this car for a year, and it was expensive. Very expensive. The tires were slashed and the windows cracked. I asked the store a few doors down for their CCTV footage of that night, but it was blurry and didn't catch much. It did manage to catch half a license plate though, and the color and make of a car. It was his LW's youngest sister's car. I told him I was filing a police report, and he asked me to hold off until he talked to them first. I told him no, but I would if they paid for the damages and apologized to my face. He set up the meeting for last night, and it didn't go well, to say the least. Everyone was shouting. The sisters told me they, yes, both of them, had nothing to be sorry for, and that I should leave their family alone, including my fiancé and their family. He told them that it wasn't fair to him to be lonely forever, and that he'd hoped they'd be supportive of him finding love again. They told him he was betraying LW, and that he never loved her if he'd marry someone else. They didn't have a problem with him having a new girlfriend because he'd realized she was the only one for him, and get tired of me. Now that hadn't happened. They were putting their foot down. The youngest told him to tell me that they were right, and that he'd never love anyone like LW. My fiancé broke down at the table. I picked him up and made us leave. I informed them I'd be filing a report and suing for damages, and the next time they saw us would be in court. After we returned and calmed down, I gave him an ultimatum. Either he cuts contact or we call off the wedding and go our separate ways. I wasn't going to live my life with this harassment and someday subject my children to their bullying. He said they would never bully a child, but I dismissed him and said he didn't expect any of this either. He called their father, who was fairly calm about it all, but still defended his daughters. They say I shouldn't control him and that I'm horrible for cutting them off. I don't know what to do. I can't live like this, and I don't think I should have to, just because we're getting married. Update. Hey everyone, just a mini update to clear some things up before I have a discussion with my fiancé, either later today or tomorrow, about my ultimatum. I didn't sleep at all yesterday or the night before, for obvious reasons. There's a ding on my phone at least once an hour from them saying one thing or another, mainly the 19-year-old, and I don't know what they've told people, but I've got a message from one of their uncles and grandparents calling me horrible stuff too. So obviously they've been spreading what's happened this week and twisting it. I haven't blocked them because I want to gain as much evidence as I can for the inevitable case. Regardless of any outcome with my fiancé, I will be suing and filing a criminal case for harassment and vandalism and looking for a restraining order. I just haven't had the mental fortitude to do so yet. I'm hoping my fiancé will help me. I haven't spoken to my fiancé since the argument at the table, other than to tell him they go, or I do. It was my decision to give him a couple of days space to come to terms with everything, and I will contact him when I'm ready. All of this, from the first message till now, has been a week. It's a significant weight to think about leaving people you've known for 15 years and who you grew up with. He did set firm boundaries with the sister from the coffee shop, as I've seen the messages. He said, paraphrasing, "You have no right talking to OP at all if this is how you're going to behave. She doesn't deserve this, and you've gone too far. Why are you being like this?" And she responded with more name-calling and back and forth. He ended by saying not to message me again and to make sure everyone else does the same. I was pleased with that. At this point, only one person in that family had an issue to my knowledge, so it was ridiculous to have him cut all of them off. It may not be enough for some, but it was enough for me to feel safe and comfortable. For those saying he needs therapy and counseling, he's already getting it. He's been in therapy since before we even started dating after an incident at work. I don't know about any of their family though. The first time I had a conversation with any of them was that night. Some people are wondering what LW died of, and it was a botched weight loss surgery where she died of sepsis. People were wondering if he was somehow the reason behind the surgery, hence the family's extreme reaction. But he was not in the slightest. He likes bigger women and wouldn't pressure something like that onto her, speaking from experience. I also want to clear up the not calling the police about the car thing. It was entirely my idea to not file charges in exchange for a face-to-face apology and damage payment. He only only wanted me to wait so that he could talk to her to see if she regretted it and then have her father pay the damages. At the time, we thought it was just the 19F that smashed up my car, not both daughters. Neither of us wanted to ruin her life. When I found out it was both of them, it was full steam ahead. Thank you all for your messages, and hopefully I'll have a positive update for you tomorrow. Edit. I chose for him to take this space apart. It's not him being indecisive. I said to take time and that I'd reach out so that his decision is thought out. It's for me. I don't want to be chosen only to be 3 kids down the line and stuck in a resentment-filled marriage. It's for me. Please understand that. Update. Well, what a wild morning I've had. My fiancé came over bright and early this morning and I've never been so damn tired. You may want to take a seat because this will be long. Sorry in advance. First of all, I want to set the record straight here. A lot of people are criticizing my fiancé for not cutting them off from the beginning, which I don't think is fair. He's a very mild-mannered, calm, and calculating person, and that's who I always knew he was. Nothing has changed. If he had been Rocky Balboa and flipped the cafe table shouting obscenities, he would not have been the man I fell in love with. He did exactly what I expected him to do, and exactly what I was comfortable with. You may be attracted to other things in men and expect other things, and that's awesome, but not me. Update. I texted him saying I thought it was time to discuss this, and he was back home in less than half an hour. He'd been staying with a friend for the couple of nights we had no contact. We sat on our bed to talk because my back is sore from all the packing, and I wasn't going to force myself to sit at the table. Before we even got to talking, he asked if we could cuddle for a minute. It definitely took some of the weight off, and we were able to talk like a couple and not awkward strangers because, regardless of some people's beliefs, we do love each other, and it took me a very long time to feel confident in that fact. Before anyone calls me a doormat again, no, I was still sure I would stick to my ultimatum. The first thing I inquired about was if he felt he had sufficient time to make his decision, and he said he didn't need any more time. He was incredibly shocked and bewildered by how much could change in just a week. Everything he knew was shaken up so much that he couldn't think clearly and went numb. He did apologize for not taking a more defensive stance at the cafe and doesn't want to make excuses for it. His explanation was that he genuinely didn't expect such a vitriolic response. He hid the engagement because he knew they hadn't moved past LW's death and would be upset by the news. It wasn't like I would feel hurt by them not knowing, which I wasn't really. He's known these girls since they were kids and never would have thought them capable of such behavior. It came so unexpectedly that he froze. I asked him if there was any possibility that either of them had feelings for him, and he looked very confused and disturbed. I mentioned how I've had people tell me it's not uncommon for siblings to act this way after a loss, and he thought about it. Turns out you were right. He said the 24-year-old, about 8 months after LW's death, made a move and tried to kiss him. He immediately left and told her mother about it. Her parents are divorced now but weren't then. She was a minor at the time and messaged him saying she would be 18 soon, so it wasn't a big deal. Her mother made her see the school counselor and didn't allow her to be alone with him for a while. It was years ago, so he'd forgotten it even happened. He said he was sure that wasn't the case now because it had been so long, but I'm not so convinced. Not that it matters anymore. He opened up his Facebook and gave it to me to read. The 24-year-old had been messaging him, which he ignored. She ranged from telling him off to crying and saying how betrayed the family felt to trying to manipulate him against me. He said he was confident that he needed to leave those things behind and had been pondering it sporadically since he proposed, but couldn't bring himself to act on it. After this week, the fire was ignited and he knew what he had to do. It was all just an idea until suddenly it became very tangible. He asked me how I've been managing and I told him. I felt like I had done everything correctly, but somehow things turned out worse than if I had been the jealous type and stopped their contact from the start. I tried to be understanding and put in so much effort to be confident in myself and our relationship, only for everything I worked on to be thrown back at me like I was a mistress having an affair with him. He didn't blink the entire time and just listened. He said he should have been more attentive and realized I was struggling with this so that he could help me, but I've always been the strong one, so he neglected to, and he will do better. As I've mentioned in a few comments now, his parents had him in their late 40s and are retired. He hates to involve them in negativity, but I was shocked when he said he has been talking to them about this since the first Facebook message. They were very understanding, but his father took a tough love approach. He said the best quote I think I've ever heard: "Get your act together before the jig is up." They offered to come stay for a while and help us move. I don't think that's necessary, but I really appreciated the gesture. On the subject of moving, I made it clear that I would not be living in this house any longer than I had to, and he completely agreed. His parents offered to find us a place in their state if we wanted to have more of a support network, and I'm honestly considering it after all this. They're only a state away from my own family, so we'd be a lot better off. His job is remote, and I should be able to find work there easily enough. I've been in touch with a friend who's a mechanic, and they've quoted me between $1,000 to $2,000 for the damages, but that's an at-cost estimate as a discount. Several people have suggested getting a formal statement and shopping around. The actual cost is between $4,000 to $5,000, and that's just for the visible damage. My friend suspects they've done something to the engine, so thank God I couldn't drive it anywhere. He believes I may be entitled to a replacement car altogether. If that's the case, I will definitely sue for it, and that's not going to be cheap. After discussing all the emotional aspects, he asked when I would be comfortable enough to go to the police. I made it clear he was okay with that, or I'd go on my own. He said, the surest I've ever seen him, that this is what needed to be done, and he wasn't going to let them continue. He'd done enough to try and shield them, but he wasn't going to let it come at my expense. I'm currently in the bath, frothing in bath bombs, but we'll be going to the station as soon as I'm done. He's downstairs right now, printing out the new quotes from the mechanics and the messages the 24-year-old sent him over the past couple of days so we can go prepared. People have said that nothing will come of it, and you may be right, but I have to try, hoping my local police don't have anything better to do. It's a small town. To conclude, I made a point of asking again if he would cut them off, or if I had to go. He didn't hesitate, and said that they're no longer going to be a part of his life, even if I decided to leave. He did ask for one last meeting to say goodbye to her her parents and to close that chapter of his life, and to explain to the girls that this is not my fault, but his decision after seeing how cruel they could be. After that, we would block them on everything and move forward. I was completely fine with that. So, there we have it. Writing all this out and being able to talk to people about everything has been both helpful and a good distraction from the dumpster fire that was my life, and everything worked out as well as I could have hoped. We'll see how his meeting goes with them. I'm sure they won't be very happy about it, but that's not my problem. Thank you all, and I'll update after they've met up. Update. So, it seems I've been naughty because I got temporarily banned on here for 3 days. In chat, someone was calling me every derogatory and sexist term imaginable, but I was put in timeout for defending myself. I appealed, but the appeal took the ban time anyway. Oh well. Sorry this update is taking so long for reasons stated above. So we drove down to the police station with our pile of paperwork and had a couple hours of discussion. They were so sweet about everything. As some of you expected, they did say I should have come earlier, but they didn't really care because it was only a few days. They said that it often takes people about this length of time to actually file charges if they weren't in immediate threat or danger, so unless someone was about to throw punches. I handed them everything, and it looks like I've got plenty of evidence. They'll be contacting my insurance on my behalf to get the ball rolling, and so they can come to do a check of my car themselves, and then they can open a claim with me if I want. They're not filing a claim, they're just notifying about the criminal damages. I filed criminal charges for harassment and vandalism, and they'll notify me with more details about my restraining order this week. My fiancé told the police that he was planning on meeting with LW's family and asked if that would contradict my case, and they said no. We're not married at the time of filing, so legally we're two separate entities in the case, or something. So my car is totaled. My mechanic friend, I'm gonna call him Tom, because I can't keep saying my mechanic friend. So Tom and his partner at the shop did a detailed inspection on my car, and this is the damage they found. Shattered windshield 4, slashed tires 2, broken windows, damaged paint, obvious I think, unknown substance in the engine oil, battered bodywork. They said with this extent of damage, I should just go for a new car, so that's what I'll be doing. If anyone is curious, it was a Volvo. I had always wanted one and managed to purchase one new 2 years ago. Either they get me a new car, or they'd be set back about $60,000. Either way, I'll be alright. The amount classifies the vandalism as a felony, so they could be looking at jail time as well. My fiancé met with the family on Saturday, and Tom sat by the window. I currently live in a one-party state, so as long as my fiancé consents, the recording can be used in my case. While it may not be as drama-filled as some of you may want, it was still pretty stressful to watch. They met at the same cafe we did before, and Tom sat a few tables away. My fiancé arrived after their father and before them. It turned out for the best, because they managed to have a calm conversation for once. My fiancé told him how he was feeling, and his father was very understanding but still trying to minimize the situation. He was saying things like, you know, they miss LW and they'll come around and just need time to come to terms with you moving on. He kept trying to offer to pay for the damages, but my fiancé wouldn't discuss it until the sisters arrived. It was like butter wouldn't melt with the 24-year-old, but the 19-year-old came in like the Tasmanian devil. My fiancé didn't acknowledge anyone until it had all settled down. Then he said this would be his last meeting with all of them, and they'd be going their separate ways. He turned to the girls and said that he would miss who he thought they were, but the way they treated people horrified him, especially me. He said that this was all on him, and they needed to accept that I was not to blame. He even stated that it was me who offered the apology to avoid pressing charges. The 19-year-old then interrupted, asking what charges, and asserting that no one was going to charge them for barely touching a car. She was a deer in headlights when he inquired about what they had done to the engine oil, and the two exchanged looks. It seemed they hadn't expected me to discover that. Cue the groveling. The 24-year-old actually tried to touch his hand and pleaded with him to stop me from pressing charges because it would ruin her and interfere with the 19-year-old's college plans. He said it was too late and the police should be issuing a warrant soon. It can take a few days. I thought it was an immediate thing, but apparently not. This is when their dad intervened again and urged everyone to calm down and resolve this like adults. Suddenly, he wants his daughters to be adults. I see. He asked if my fiancé would persuade me to drop the charges in exchange for that apology, and he would cover the damages. When my fiancé mentioned it was $60,000, the look he gave those women could shave the hair off a cat. The quality of the video wasn't the best, but I swear I saw the color drain from their faces. I may sound awful, but I enjoyed it. Call me what you will. They continued talking about apologizing and offering to pay, but he simply stated it was too late and he was done. He had tried to be civil, but they were the ones who wouldn't let it go. The 24-year-old actually requested him to set up a meeting with me so they could get to know me and move past this. He didn't respond, and after the silence, they spoke up again like, so she won't even meet us? So she's behind all this because she doesn't want us around. We'll see about that. Not using exact quotes because I don't know if I'm allowed, so I'm not risking it. Things like that. They droned on, and honestly, it was more amusing than hurtful. However, they did incriminate themselves further for my harassment case, and the nail in the coffin was when the 19-year-old said, if we can do that to a car, imagine what else we could do. That, my friends, is both a confession and a threat of bodily harm. My fiancé shouted aloud, stop, before wishing my father-in-law well, and telling the girls to not come near me. He then got up and left. That's where the recording ends, because we wouldn't be able to use anything afterward anyway. As for moving, we're almost completely packed and have a truck scheduled to come on Friday. We'll be staying with his parents until we can find a new place. We're considering buying a house this time, but might get an RV temporarily so we're not all stepping on each other. I doubt his parents would mind at all, but just in case. This is the last update for a while, I think. I have a wedding to finish planning, a venue to change, new invitations to send out, etc., and less than 2 months to do it. Send help. But thank you all for being an audience and helping me get through this, even if it's just to distract me from overthinking and digging a huge mental hole. Update. So it's been a while, everyone. Calling the past few months a roller coaster wouldn't quite do it justice. A lot has happened, and I hope I don't leave anything out. Here goes. Thanks. So, first off, we've moved away. We're only a few towns over from my husband's parents. Technically, we just live in their backyard. And my parents are in the next state over. Hallelujah. It's been really wonderful living in our new RV, and we've been able to take short trips now and then, which has been excellent for a breather. It took a chunk out of our house savings, but we're not too worried about it. House hunting has been fun too. I can't speak to what might have happened, but by a stroke of luck, the warrants came through the day before our moving day, and the sisters spent the whole move in police custody. I'm sure it wasn't as formal as handcuffs and interview rooms, but I like to imagine it that way. So we didn't have to handle any drama that definitely would have occurred otherwise. As I mentioned before, we didn't block them because we wanted to keep the line open for more evidence, and boy, was that a good idea. 19 Yo has only recently stopped sending me messages. Initially, she was pleading and hoping for a meetup. Then she progressed to calling me names and such for trying to ruin her life. The past few weeks have been filled with pure rage, which has been exhausting, yet oddly entertaining. She says she'll find me and that I'd better watch my back, blah blah blah. My printer has been working overtime, as you can imagine. So many receipts to give my lawyer. 24 Yo is still working on my husband, but things came to a head a few days before the wedding. We should have changed the dates, but it just wasn't feasible. We had family from across the country who had taken time off work, and we really wanted everyone there after everything that happened. She tried to call my husband over a dozen times and actually left 2 voicemails. She was crying and hyperventilating, saying how she didn't want to lose him. For those of you who said she still had a thing for him, ding dong. My husband listened to the voicemails with me, and she just rambled. It was actually quite sad. She said that she always thought they would be together because they've been through so much together and it felt right. She blamed him for leading her on and making her fall for him, only to choose someone else that he hardly knew. She even said she felt replaced, which made me uncomfortable. All of this while degrading him for betraying his LW by moving on at all. I genuinely do not understand her logic. As for my car, we've discovered what the unknown substance was. It was antifreeze. The entire engine was written off, and with everything else, my insurance launched a case against them for the cost of a new car. I was expecting $60,000 or so, but Tom, my mechanic friend, said to ask for more based on the current market value and such. They came back with a new offer of $75,000. It took over a month for the money to hit my account, but I got it. As for the case, I'm no longer going after them for the repayment. My insurance is handling that, so that's one less thing I have to worry about. As far as I know, their father is covering their legal fees, but I doubt he'll reimburse the insurance company on their behalf. There is still a case against them for harassment and threatening behavior, and I'm suing for the costs it took to relocate and for emotional distress. My lawyer believes they'll be held liable, and it seems they want to settle. I don't feel entirely comfortable pursuing emotional distress, but after all they've done, it certainly was emotionally distressing. The courts are moving slowly, so I don't have any updates on the criminal case yet, other than that they plan to plead guilty. It shouldn't be too long now, and it looks like they're getting probation and mandatory anger management. Not jail time, but oh well, at least they'll both have a record. My husband was down for a while since we moved, but he hasn't wavered in supporting me. He's returning to his old self now that he's settling in at work here, and he is enjoying being closer to his parents. It's been great for our relationship as well because we all get along so well. As of the 21st, I'm a married woman. It was very hectic and stressful to change basically our entire wedding in 2 months, but we did it, and our guests were so understanding. We had to compromise on a few things like our cake and catering, but everything else turned out amazing. Now, we couldn't imagine it happening any other way. It happened as it was supposed to. All in all, things are going well, and thanks to everyone who got invested. It's been a tough journey. I'm just glad to have them out of my life. Am I the a-hole for defending my husband after my ex-husband abandoned our children? I, 38F, have a 9-year-old son, Max, and a 6-year-old daughter, Olivia, with my ex-husband Dan, 35M. Max has severe autism and requires a lot of care. I remarried 3 years ago, and my husband Luke is incredible. My ex, Dan, has the kids for 6 hours every week. This week, it was on Tuesday, and as I was away for a funeral, Dan took the day off work to be with them in the morning and evening. Dan and his girlfriend, Sophie, picked them up as planned at 11 a.m. My husband took this time to play a round of golf with my brother. They finished the game at 4 p.m., and the golf course is 30 minutes from our house. I got a call at 5 p.m. exactly from Sophie, screaming at me about abandoning my kids. I was confused and eventually realized Luke wasn't home yet. I told her where the spare key was so they could wait for Luke inside. Unfortunately, Luke's car had broken down on the motorway, and he was in a complete coverage dead zone. He was able to call emergency services, but nothing else would connect. When the police arrived, the first thing he did was ask if someone could contact Dan to explain what happened. Sophie was already on the phone with the police to report me and my husband for child abandonment. They said one of us should have been there, and my ex didn't feel safe inside our home, so they left the kids inside our home, insisting that the police needed to go save our kids and arrest us. The police officer speaking to them told them multiple times to turn around, stating that they were the ones who had abandoned the children. During this time, I was getting messages from Dan saying how unfair this was to him and Sophie, and that I am a terrible parent for leaving the kids with someone who doesn't give a shit about our kids. At this point, I didn't actually know what was going on. All I knew was that Luke wasn't home, but Dan had found the spare key. At no point did he tell me they had left the kids alone. Luke contacted me through the police, and I arranged for a friend to go there as soon as she could, but the police already had a unit there after the call with Sophie. After this, I've decided to try and get his 6 hours a week removed. I've given him so much leeway over the years, and this was my limit. Our son depends on an adult, and our daughter is 6, and the only thing he would say to defend himself is, well, I kept up my side of the agreement by bringing them back after 6 hours. This has caused a whole other shitstorm, to the point where Sophie sent me messages that the police are now investigating. devastating. Dan hinted he is going to try and get the kids taken into care because of my husband abandoning them. Multiple people have asked me why I'm staying with someone who abandoned my children. His parents have threatened to try and gain custody of the children, saying the children need a stable family unit and calling my husband abusive. I said, fuck this, and put the whole story with evidence on my private Facebook page, and people quickly understood. But now, I'm being branded a drama queen and an asshole for publicly blasting the father of my children, putting my husband above my kids. I don't understand how. He's more of a father to them than Dan is. I feel like I've taken crazy pills. Am I the a-hole? Update. That happened a week ago. The post was made a few days after it happened. The post I made on social media had stirred up quite the fuss, but most things have been sorted, for now, and my post is still up telling people what happened. My brother, Pete, was friends with my ex-husband before we ever got together. He also never really got involved in our relationship or separation. He's never been very involved in my life beyond being a good uncle. He's a nice guy, but we have never been that close. He's always been closer to my ex, and now with my husband. When he discovered what occurred, everything changed drastically, and he immersed himself fully in the situation. My brother, who had always been the beta in his friendship with Dan, seemed to be afraid of him. Well, not anymore. He phoned Dan and instructed him to meet at Dan's parents' house, whom he knows quite well. Dan was advised that bringing Sophie to this meeting wouldn't end well for him. I am not sure of the exact conversation, but the result was that Dan's parents are going no contact with him. I don't like them. They have never liked me, but I have never doubted they loved my kids and would protect them with their lives. Pete did tell me that Dan firmly stated he wouldn't end things with Sophie under any circumstances, even if it meant not being able to see his children. Pete explained the situation to my ex-in-laws, confirming that the version of events I posted was accurate, and went through the timeline and proof. Dan argued, bitched, and moaned until his dad told him to leave. I believe that my brother's serious approach, despite being known for caring about beer, women, and sports and nothing else, helped the grandparents realize the gravity of the situation. I spoke with them, and though their apology was hardly worth hearing, we reached an understanding. I will not allow any visits or contact between Dan, Sophie, and my children going forward. Our agreement was informal, no court orders or anything official. If he wants to see them, he will have to fight for it, which I know he won't. Those 6 hours a week are now going to be with his parents, on the condition that if they allow Dan to be around the kids, even once, they will be cut off from our lives. They were fine with this arrangement. Today, they picked the kids up and spent the day with them. After 5 hours, they called and asked if they could bring the kids back an hour later than planned. They were having a lot of fun painting, and the kids wanted to finish what they were doing. No problem. Thanks for checking. I cannot emphasize enough how much I dislike them, but knowing my children are with people who desire to be with them is such a good feeling. Dan didn't even send me a text, asking if he was going to have his scheduled time today. I spoke to a police officer yesterday about the messages sent to me by Sophie. I'm going to gloss over some details, for reasons, but they are moving forward with an investigation. There's a continued pattern of behavior, and it has been escalating. She's made some very specific threats, and over the weekend, sent me a message that contained information she would only know if she had followed me to where I was at the time. Luke has set up external cameras on our house, ensuring our cars are covered by cameras at all times. Our neighbors know what happened last week, so they're going to keep an eye out for her as well. I feel terrible that I allowed this person to be around my kids for almost a year. I let her be around them, without knowing her well enough to recognize she was capable of behavior like this. I spoke to AmITheA to ask what she thought of Sophie, and she said she was grumpy and not fun, but nothing to indicate she hurt them or anything. This reaction to the whole situation is just unhinged. Luke has been a star through this. He's resisted the very strong urge to find Dan and beat him with a golf club. He's not worth replacing a driver, and made sure the kids know he loves spending time with them. AmITheA calls him daddy anyway, but she knew she was abandoned last week, and he's shown her that he's here for her. He's always loved Max, and been amazing with him, but I know he's found it difficult to connect. He asked for advice, and I told him just to try things he enjoys and see if Max engages. Well, Max spent 5 hours on Sunday with a golf putter in his hand, hitting a ball to the putting machine thing Luke has in the garage, and apparently he's a natural. Luke now has it outside because Max became automatic in the garage and required a bigger green. So, I'm now reassessing my life. Living with one golf enthusiast was barely manageable. 2 might be more than I can handle. I'm currently typing this while looking at Olivia's painting of a birthday cake. Deranged threats aside, I'm content with how things are at the moment. Update. Since my earlier posts, everything has mostly been resolved. I didn't go into detail at the time, but much of what Sophie was sending me involved accusing me of sexual infidelity and telling many people that I was someone who fucked other women's men. I believed she was accusing me of cheating on my ex with my now husband, but we will return to this later. She encouraged people to message me from public posts on her Facebook. One person even came to my door to yell abuse at me. Due to this and other actions she took, I reported her to the police, and they opened a case of harassment. I spoke to a kind officer who collected all the evidence I had, and a week later, she was arrested and interviewed. Her phone and computer were seized, and she was released with conditions to not contact me directly or indirectly. I was informed there was enough evidence to support a prosecution, but at that stage, I just wanted to move on and be done with it. Dragging it through court for who knows how long seemed such a daunting and horrible prospect, so the police didn't proceed with the prosecution and filed it with no further further action, meaning the bail conditions would no longer apply once it was filed. I was told this would occur after a review by someone who wasn't the officer handling it, which would be between 1 to 7 days, and I would be notified when it was completed. I'm not 100% sure on the specifics, legalities of this paragraph, it's just how it was explained to me. I wasn't involved in any of it directly. This was communicated to her, and being the bright spark she is, she immediately messaged my brother something along the lines of his sister being a whore and a waste of police time. The bail conditions were still in place. He reported this to the police, not knowing I wasn't moving forward with the whole case. It turns out that where I live, breaching bail conditions is a crime against the government, not the person they were meant to protect. I have no knowledge of what's going on with that, but I am led to believe she is in a bit of legal trouble. After she was interviewed, I was informed of what was said about all this to the police, bringing everything full circle to the original incident that led to all this. Turns out Sophie and my ex were in a relationship for almost 2 years while we were still married, with it ending around the time my 6-year-old daughter was born and then reconnected in the last year or so. I had no clue this happened. I'm actually weirdly impressed I hid it so well. Sophie was under the impression we split up a year into their relationship and didn't know we had a son while they were together. When they reconnected, he told her we had 2 kids, which she wasn't happy about, but forgave him. The thing is, my ex told her that my daughter is 8, she is 6. He was covering up lying to her all those years ago about separating from me. I guess this was easier than telling her that not only were we together for the 2nd year of their relationship, but we had a child in that time. I don't know what his long-term plan for this lie was. The day it all exploded, Olivia corrected her about her age, and she realized that I had been having sex with her man while they were together all those years ago. My then husband. She thinks the moment he told her we had split up, she went from being the other woman to the legitimate partner. I'll go to my grave not understanding that logic. Anyway, she hit the roof and refused to be around his love child any longer, which led to the entire issue at my house in the first post. Fortunately, she didn't say any of this in front of Olivia. Dan is still with her. They can have each other. He has made it clear he has no interest in seeing either his legitimate child or his love child, which is acceptable. His parents have been incredible this entire time, helping with childcare to the extent that I have been able to pick up more hours at work. We've gotten along much better since they've accepted that maybe all the bad things they heard about me weren't true. There is still some bad blood, but it's a much improved relationship, which is great for the kids because they love spending time with them both. The absolute worst part of all of this is that Max, Luke, my brother Pete, my ex Phil, and Pete's BL are now in a weird golfing crew. Max still only putts when they reach the hole, but he enjoys watching the others play the full game. Golf isn't played in the winter, is it? This ends soon, right? I'm going to hear conversations about anything else by the end of November, surely. Update. This is an essay that no one asked for or will likely read. I don't care. I'm in a good place. I'm happy. I want to talk about it. Deal with it. Since my last post, child services were involved, and an investigation was done. Legally, parental responsibility is solely mine. My ex didn't put up a fight. My solicitor and the child services people did a lot of the heavy lifting and carried me through it all. They're saints. I don't understand most of that stuff, but they held my hand throughout. Ever since everything erupted, my ex-in-laws have been amazing. If you'd have told me a year ago that I would cherish those 2 people, I'd have assumed you were on drugs, or I was on drugs. Drugs would definitely be involved. They're called Joanne and William. It makes it easier to say nice things about them if they have names. I was given an opportunity at work to step into a more senior position, but it required a greater time commitment than was possible, considering Max's needs and the kids attending 2 different schools. William owns a small business and had been planning on semi-retiring in 2026. He said he couldn't think of a better reason to bring that forward a few years than spending more time with his grandkids. He told me to accept the new role and we can figure everything out afterward, which made me cry like a baby. Since the beginning of December, he has picked them up from their schools 3 times a week and has them until 7 p.m. He does all sorts with them. He took them to the aquarium because Max kept reading a book about fish. One day, Olivia helped him do some things on his car while Max organized his tools. Another day, he built a blanket fort for Livy and a pillow throne for Max and fought the sofa demon. Every day he has them, I'm told about something fun they did together when they get home. It's never been, we just sat around, it was boring, or we watched TV. He finds a way of engaging with them both, in different ways at the same time. I'll be honest, that's something I struggle with a lot of the time. I never got the impression from my ex-husband that he was the greatest dad to him when he was growing up, but he's an unbelievable grandfather. They love their time with him. Christmas was the biggest turning point though. Despite them being so amazing and stepping up with the kids, there was still an underlying bitterness in both directions. They didn't treat me well while I was married to my ex. Nothing abusive, just generally rude and inconsiderate, snippy and judgmental comments. They never made any effort to hide the fact that they didn't like me. I always assumed it was because of some drama at the beginning of mine and my ex's relationship that they couldn't get past. Christmas was spent with my husband, the kids, William and Joanne, my brother, his fiance, stepson, and my current in-laws, Pauline and Mike. We were coordinating our Christmas Day plans, discussing which house we'd be at and when Olivia suddenly said, "Can everyone come to our house? Daddy can cook for everyone." So that became our plan. During the gift exchange, the 4 in-laws handed Luke and me an envelope. Inside were 2 vouchers. The first voucher read, "Honeymoon, redeemable by Mummy and Daddy only," and the second said, read Grandparent Adventure Week, redeemable by grandchildren only. Both were to be used simultaneously. Luke and I hadn't had a chance to go on a honeymoon when we got married, so the four of them decided to send us on one. While we're on that trip, they will take my 2 kids and 2 of their cousins of similar ages, one from each side, to an adventure family resort not far from us, Center Parcs, for those familiar with the UK. By this point, I had consumed 4 glasses of wine, and with the incredibly generous gift, and William and Joanne calling Luke Daddy, I was an emotional mess. Olivia has always called Luke Daddy, but they always referred to him as Luke when talking to her. It wasn't until I saw the voucher that I realized they had started calling him Daddy to the kids without me even noticing. A few more wines later, I asked Joe why things couldn't have been like this before, why they never liked me. The moment Max was diagnosed, you decided that only you were capable of keeping him safe, and that continued when Olivia came along. Do you know how heartbreaking it is to not be trusted to look after your own grandchildren? That was painful to hear. She wasn't wrong. I'm not saying it absolves them of how they treated me, but I had hurt them, even if it wasn't intentional. I always told myself I trusted them with the kids, but in hindsight, I was simply creating a narrative that allowed me to wrap them both, especially Max, in bubble wrap. I would frequently check up on them. I would pick them up early. I would ensure they got my approval for every activity beforehand. To me, leaving the kids with them at all signified trust, but that was far from the truth. More tears followed, then apologies and hugs. It was extremely cathartic. I really enjoy her company. Now, we've even gone out for lunch, just the 2 of us, a few times recently. The me from 12 months ago would probably want to see the me of today take a drug test for writing that last sentence. Oh, and my brother put his weight on our glass coffee table while getting up off the floor. It shattered, and he needed an ambulance. He was the only sober one, for a change, but couldn't drive since his hands were very red and very wet. Now my daughter knows that shouting "stupid fucking cunting table" at the top of her lungs is not allowed in our house, even if an adult says it first. Our honeymoon to Italy is set for August. Grandparent Adventure Week is scheduled. The 2 granddads are determined to outdo each other by turning every activity into a competition. Hearing 2 60-plus-year-old men argue about who has the better physique for archery was one of the more surreal moments of my life. Before they coordinated this, they hadn't interacted much beyond events involving the kids. Now they've got a group chat and make plans, just the 4 of them. There's talk of a cruise later in the year. Seeing my old in-laws and my new in-laws become friends is really strange, and it will always be strange. I did joke to my husband about how this could lead to them swinging together, and he immediately walked out of the room in silence. For a moment, I'd forgotten that half of that delightful foursome are his parents. Now on to the less fun stuff. My ex-husband Dan and his girlfriend Sophie. Sometime between Christmas and New Year, neighbors called the police to Sophie's home and she was detained. There was ongoing domestic abuse, and that final incident resulted in him being seriously injured. I don't know exactly what wounds he had, only that she messed him up really bad. She has been charged with GBH, editor's note, grievous bodily harm, more than one I think, coercive control, and non-fatal strangulation, and is being held on remand until whenever the trial is. This was all told to me by my brother, who still has mutual acquaintances with him. I never had any inkling this was happening, but then again, why would I? After this, Joe and William informed me they were going to reach out to him. They share my viewpoint that the best thing for the children moving forward is for him to not be in their lives, but he's still their son, and they want to be there for him. They didn't need my permission, but I appreciated the heads up. He has relocated to another part of the country, being supported by a charity and making a fresh start. He inquired about the kids, but they told him that he needed to concentrate on himself before he could focus on his children. I received a letter from a solicitor earlier this month asking me to contact them. I asked my solicitor to find out what it was about. It was her solicitors, and they wanted me to consent to child services providing them with any reports involving my ex and my kids. Am I correct in assuming you want me to politely tell them you don't wish to engage with this matter? I'd prefer you be impolite. I am struggling to balance my empathy for the awful situation he was clearly in with my rage for his neglect of our children. I don't know how I will ever reach a point where I trust him to be in the same room with them, let alone alone. Even beyond the incident from my original post, there is just too much history there. I hope he gets the help he needs, and I hope he lives a happy life. I really hope it's far away from my kids. I'm not saying never, but I see any future interaction with them as highly unlikely at best. Yeah, that's all happening to someone I once thought was the love of my life, while I'm the happiest I've ever been. To end on a positive note, the quirky golfing group starts back up in 1.5 weeks. Golf is the worst, I hear you shout. It is never associated with joy. What could possibly make anything related to golf a happy note to end on? When I was 13, I broke my arm riding my bike and couldn't participate in or practice gymnastics for 5 months. My brother thought this was the funniest thing to ever happen to anyone in the world, ever. He asked me every Wednesday why I wasn't at gymnastics training, laughing to himself. My brother still can't play golf because of the injuries to his hands from Christmas Day. Karma's a bitch, Peter. Enjoy carrying my husband's clubs. Clarification comment from OOP on this post. Firstly, I've always had sole custody. He had 6 hours visitation because it was a written agreement stemming from our divorce, but it wasn't court enforced or anything. Child services were aware of it, but at no point did we go to family court over custody's visitation. I thought it was binding, but I was told after about 3 minutes into my first meeting with my solicitor that it wasn't worth the paper it was written on, and he could challenge for a formal arrangement management with more access, which I knew he wouldn't do. And then later says she got sole custody of her kids. No, I didn't. What I wrote in my post is actually incorrect though. As I said, I'm not an expert on this. I put that I had been given sole parental responsibility, but that's not accurate according to my husband. There's an order in place preventing my ex from making contact or being able to make decisions about them, but he still has legal parental responsibility. I got confused as that's the nuclear option for all this. Ex didn't contest the change. He didn't respond to any communication about it from my solicitors, his parents, or the courts.
The wife accused her husband of cheating, and her family physically attacked him and ruined his whole life. After the truth comes out, she wants reconciliation. My husband, 35M, and I, 30F, married for 8 years, have been separated for the last 14 months, and I need help and advice on how to rekindle our relationship. We are currently not on speaking terms, and all our arrangements go through our lawyers, but I will have an opportunity over Christmas to clear the air and set things straight, as he will be flying in from Sydney to spend time with the kids. So what happened? I received a Facebook message in September last year that my husband was talking and exchanging naked photos with other women on Tinder. We spoke on the phone for a bit, and the only proof she had was a screenshot of their conversations and his profile. Long story short, I downloaded Tinder and found his profile, with his location less than 1 km away. I was convinced that he was cheating, and we had a terrible fallout that evening, which led to my family coming over to calm the situation. But instead, it escalated when my brother punched and grabbed hold of my husband. The neighbors called the police, and my husband was asked to pack a few things and stay elsewhere for a while. We separated shortly after, and he has since moved to Sydney to be closer to his ailing father, but sees our kids for a weekend twice a month. Fast forward to the beginning of November this year, and my neighbor rocked up at my doorstep to tell me that her husband was catfishing women on dating apps using my husband's photos. He downloaded these photos from a MacBook that we lent him during COVID, and some of these photos were of an intimate nature and of me. The police are currently dealing with this. All of this has been relayed to my husband through his lawyer, but his response has been lukewarm, and he said we could talk about it over Christmas. I am so scared that we might be down too far in the rabbit hole, and that he will likely push for a divorce, even though I know that we love each other deeply. But this took a massive toll on our mental health, finances, and the well-being of our 3 kids. What is the best way to approach him in December and make amends? TLDR. A neighbor used his husband's photos to catfish women on Tinder for naked photos. My husband and I separated because I thought he was cheating. The neighbor's wife told me what her husband did. Police are investigating. Some comments. Your husband experienced something that you will never understand. A false accusation. An assault from your brother. Spousal alienation. There is no right of recourse against the false accusation. A complete lack of loyalty from his wife. A complete lack of respect from his wife. The loss of the life he had from a false allegation. Parental alienation from his children. Familial alienation from his in-laws. Alienation from friends. The police were called, and he had to leave. She separated from him. Your husband has already completed his grieving process. You ask, are you too far down the rabbit hole? Yes, I am afraid there is no going back for you. You chose not to listen to him when he said it was not him. I agree. I don't think there's coming back from that. I understand you had reasons to believe he might be cheating, but it seems he had no chance to defend himself, and getting your family involved made everything even worse. He was punched and told to leave his house by the police, has been living away from his kids for the past 14 months, and has been treated as a villain by friends. You say you love him, but I don't think love could erase everything you two have been through and rebuild trust. Oh, and here's another thought. Perhaps reach out to any and all of his old friends, make sure they all know the truth. OP, try to salvage what you can for him. But I think the way things happened would have been very damaging. To be clear, I'm not blaming you for wanting to leave when you had clear proof from your perspective at the time that he had cheated. It's a reasonable reaction, but the way it took place seems so insanely violent and dramatic. You two got screwed over, not just by your neighbor, but also by your brother. Punching someone is never acceptable. It would have been a sucky and inappropriate reaction, even if your husband had in fact cheated. Now imagine how your husband must have felt, considering it was entirely unwarranted. Being married means being part of a shared family. The fact that your family got in the middle of it and bodily hurt him would make anyone think twice about getting back in. If you really work hard on mending those bridges, if you ensure everyone takes stock and is accountable for their mistakes, and that includes your brother, then you might rebuild your relationship. But it will most probably take time. Damn, you two really got effed over by your SHTTY neighbor. I feel bad for both of you and your kids. I get why you believed he was cheating, and I get why he might not want to rekindle the relationship. What an all-around crappy situation. This sub. Cheaters are the worst. Leave someone who cheats on you. Don't give them a second chance. Don't let them lie to and manipulate you. Also, this sub. OP is the devil because she couldn't divine that this clear-cut case of cheating was instead a highly unlikely series of events that resulted in her husband's private photos on an active Tinder account in her direct vicinity and proof of that account engaging with women. Like what the SHT, my dudes. Both OP and her husband got effed over hard by this pos neighbor, who is now dealing with the police. It's very uncool that SHT got physical, but otherwise, OP did what one would expect of her. They're both victims. If OP came on here and laid out the evidence before the truth came to light, none of the users SHTing on her now would have been like, talk to him. Maybe your neighbor borrowed your computer, stole his photos, and is elaborately catfishing people from 10 feet away. Hey, tough one. Here's a thought though. Perhaps focus your efforts and intention, not on getting back together, but 100% on uneffing this whole thing up for him. Imagine all the things that he lost, all the people whose opinions of him changed, everyone you ever spoke to and told about his infidelity, and everyone they spoke to. Every single little embarrassment, every indignity that happened to him, what your family said and did that would have hurt, every colleague, every other parent from school. Then bank manager, real estate people, every single person that got the wrong idea, and correct them. Own your mistake, position it as your failure to believe him, and rebuild his reputation. Then set about correcting the tangible harm done, the financial losses, the physical harm, and the struggle you put him through. Consider each and everything that must have been sucked for him. And then, of course, the biggest thing, the kids. You were swindled, without doubt. But despite your innocence in terms of intent, your actions still caused great harm and were negligent. Think manslaughter, not murder. Either way, you pay for the harm committed, whether the intent was there or not. Focus all of your attention on making him as close to whole as possible. If you do this, there will be one of two outcomes. He still does not forgive you, and if this is the case, then you will have helped fix the life and reputation of an innocent man. And you can look yourself and your children in the face and honestly say that although you made a terrible mistake, you did everything you could to make it right. Or, he will see the sincerity which you better have, because he will know if you are trying to seduce him into rekindling the relationship. And he will begin the process of forgiving you for your part in what happened to him. All I can say is that you had better demonstrate an absolute 100% siding with him as it relates to your family publicly and otherwise. And you will have to be patient. He will get triggered by something this traumatic from time to time, irrespective of your efforts and his forgiveness. If you truly want to get square with him, then you may find yourself apologizing for many years to come. You may find yourself having to wear unprovoked fits of rage, unprovoked fits of depression, and separation from your family at yearly milestones. Your commitment to him, and to the cause of making him whole again, will be what determines if any civil relationship, let alone a romantic one, is possible. Oh, and one final thing. You had better be upfront with him about any relationships or nights with other men. He will want to know, and if you deceive him at all when asked, then you are completely effed. If you are to salvage this, then sincerity and honesty are the only ways to truly achieve it. Chin up there. It is possible. I had some friends who separated for almost 2 years. Neither were with anyone else, but they have managed to find their way back together, and some 3 years later, they welcomed a second child into their family. So there is hope. I sincerely hope to hear a positive update in 6 months. You and your family are back together again, and making great progress on his PTSD. And yes, your romance is blossoming. Wow, what a mess. I'm glad the police were involved in what that neighbor did. As for you and your husband, a lot is going to depend on two things. How much do you both really love each other? How difficult it is for you both to have a truly serious, heart-wrenching, emotionally exhausting conversation. His logical side will likely understand why you thought it was true. After all, there were pictures. It would be easy to believe it was true. But his emotional side is going to be deeply hurt that you didn't believe him over the evidence. All you can do is sit down and try to work through it. Good luck to you. OP replies. Thank you. I thought having a therapist present might help, but I have doubts and think it is better not to involve others. The aftermath was devastating for us both, and more so for him when his friends and my family wrote him off. I still love him and have never stopped, but I know it will be on his terms if he is willing to give it another chance. I am willing to do whatever it takes. What have you done to make amends and clear his name? Have you notified his friends and family that he was falsely accused and had been faithful the entire time? Has your family apologized? Have his friends reached out and apologized? Take a look at the definitions of regret, that this happened, and remorse for the pain you caused him. I don't hear or feel remorse in your words, and I don't see remorse in your actions. Update. Hello everyone. I have had quite a few people ask for an update on what happened after we discovered that my neighbor was using my ex's photos to catfish other women. Unfortunately, after having sat down and discussed things, it was decided that our marriage was beyond repair and that we should go our separate ways. He is currently in therapy and has requested that we have a clean break with no further contact in the future. I intend to respect his wishes and will continue to communicate through his lawyer on matters that concern our kids. I have since cleared the air with our families and friends and am still actively working towards repairing his reputation. I would also like to clarify the assault and why my parents came over in the first place. The night of the argument, I called my mother to ask if I could drop off our kids and if they could spend the evening there, but she was concerned about my emotional state and asked that I stay put and they would come to fetch the kids instead. They arrived, and my brother opted to stay outside while my parents came inside to grab the kids and their bags. At this point, my father asked me to talk to my ex and calm the situation, and my mom dragged me away to get the kids and their bags ready. My brother was very confused when we came outside and was triggered by my mom saying that my ex might have cheated. My brother reacted the moment my ex walked out and grabbed my arm in a non-violent way, leading to the punch and scuffle on the front lawn. He was remorseful and apologized even before we found out my ex was not to blame. It is a series of unfortunate events that have changed many lives and robbed my family of our love and happiness. Now I have to focus on my kids, my depression, and coming to terms with the divorce. I will never forget, but hopefully the pain won't be as intense. Some comments. Well, things went way too far, and I can very much understand why your husband left. I would seriously consider cutting your brother out of your life for a while, and also really considering your reaction to this, and how it all went terribly wrong. That poor guy. He loses his marriage, his kids get assaulted, and his whole life turns upside down. My heart hurts for him. I can't imagine the grief and angst he's gone through. I remember the original post to this, and I predicted that your ex-husband wouldn't rekindle this. Too much damage has been done. You call it a scuffle on the front lawn. I mean, he was assaulted by your brother. I am praying for your ex, and I hope you can heal from this. Second story. OP's 15-year-old is pregnant, and OP doesn't know how to reveal that his older daughter is actually her biological mother. So me 53M and my wife Rose 53F had our older daughter Sarah 31F when we were 22. We were young and broke, but we managed, and now we raise Sarah the best we can. She got pregnant at 15. It was a very depressing time for her. She had to go to therapy and never told us anything about the father, which always upset her, so we never pushed the issue. She originally wanted to terminate, but kept canceling, and eventually told us she wanted to give her up for adoption. But 5 months into the pregnancy, when she was discussing with a social worker a couple to adopt, the couple dropped out of the adoption. After trying to find more couples, Sarah asked us if we wanted to adopt. Me and Rose were both 38 at this point, and we had both been discussing having another child, so we ended up adopting our daughter Ellie when Sarah had her at 16. 2 years after Ellie, me and my wife had our son Logan 13 biologically. Growing up, we always planned on telling Ellie she was adopted. But we knew that to tell her that, we had to tell her Sarah was her biological mother. Sarah never became close with Ellie, not even as siblings. She moved out after the birth and lived with Rose's sister. She has always shown sisterly love to her Logan, but never towards Ellie. There have always been conflicting feelings towards Sarah. I have seen posts on Sarah's Instagram where she posted a picture of what was supposed to be the 5 of us, but Ellie was cut out. I confronted her about this, and she said it was too painful. However, a couple years ago, she showed up drunk, begging us to let us see her daughter. We talked to her and let her stay, but we did not let her near Ellie since she was drunk. We found out from her husband that she had suffered several miscarriages and was told to consider a surrogate. She ended up doing that 4 years ago and has since had twins, Jack and Jill 3M and F, who are biologically hers. Ellie has loved being an aunt to the twins, and Sarah has encouraged this with Ellie and has been inviting Ellie over to her house for family time with Logan, who loves being an uncle. We have asked Sarah that, in light of the twins and Ellie being close to them, wouldn't it be time to tell Ellie the truth? But Sarah keeps claiming she is not ready. Recently, Ellie came to us and told us she was pregnant. This time, it is a completely different situation. We have met the father. He is a childhood friend of hers, and they decided they wanted to lose their virginities to each other. We had the talk with Ellie long ago, as we did with Sarah. We approached the situation calmly and have since met with the father and his parents. Ellie is insistent on keeping the baby. She is 3 months along. We have not told Sarah yet. We do not know how to approach the situation, and we do not know how she will be able to take it. Me and my wife are considering telling Ellie the truth, but we need Sarah to be there. Relevant comments from the OP. On to do. Did you ever consider Sarah was Sayed? And that's why she never told you about the father, wanted to terminate, and is incredibly distant from her daughter because she is the offspring of the attacker. Just a passing thought. OP, yes, she has never said anything, but we have always suspected that is what happened. Her therapist would be the only person who knows, but whatever is said stays between them. Line oven. Please discuss contraception with your son if you haven't already. Also, why is her being pregnant a nudge to tell her she is your other daughter's biological child? Wouldn't that be a bit much just this second? OP. Yeah, we might hold off on telling her, but at the same time, we don't know how Sarah will react to finding out Ellie is pregnant. We have had the talk with all 3 of our children about contraception. They didn't want to use protection the first time and thought being careful would not risk pregnancy. Transportation Fund 219. I did think of this right away. I wonder what will happen when one of them does an off-the-shelf DNA test. It will probably happen at some point. OP. I would not do a DNA test without Ellie knowing anything, because if Sarah was assaulted, I would not want him around Ellie. Update. So I decided to write an update, as I'm still getting messages on this account. First, I want to address the main issue. I was wondering about advice on what to do after finding out that my daughter Ellie 15 is pregnant, but that we had the exact same situation with her older sister Sarah 31, who is actually Ellie's biological mother. Well, I decided to just focus on helping out Ellie, who is 4 months pregnant. We didn't want to stress her out by telling her about the adoption yet. In fact, we know we should have already told her a long time ago. Despite Sarah's emotions on the matter, it's not like we even knew the details about Ellie's father, so that would have been Sarah's talk. But we as Ellie's parents still should have told her the truth when she was younger. A week after I made the post, Ellie told her family about the pregnancy. She had since told my parents, her boyfriend's grandparents, and then of course Sarah. Sarah didn't react well, but she told her she would support her. Of course Sarah reached out to us after very upset, but said she was ready to talk to Ellie, first about the adoption with us, and she said that she wanted to tell Ellie about her father alone. We sat down and had a discussion. Ellie was of course upset, but calmed down after a while. She of course had questions about her father. Sarah had that discussion with her. At the time, I didn't know what she was told, and it was none of our business, but Ellie told us she knew who he was and said she didn't want to reach out, so we moved on after that. The other day, I got a call from my sister-in-law, Renee 31F, my brother's wife. She was angry and was asking what kind of sick ideas Sarah was putting in Ellie's head. She started mentioning stuff about Ellie's adoption, so after I got her to calm down, she told me what happened. She claimed that Ellie had messaged my brother Ethan 32 and told him about the adoption and wanted to talk to him. This confused me because me and Ethan don't talk much. We were never really close because we are 21 years apart. He was my mother's late child, and he always got along with mine and our sister's kids, as they were all around the same age. And Ellie only saw him on the holidays, so telling him about the details of her life didn't make sense. Renee explained to me that Ellie claimed that Ethan was her father, because that is what Sarah had told her, and told him that he was going to be a grandpa. I had to sit down for a while. I called Sarah, and we had a long conversation. She told me that yes, it was true that Ethan is Ellie's biological father. Sarah and Ethan were close when they were young. They were only 8 months apart. Sarah says that when they went through puberty, feelings changed, and that every time she went to her grandmother's, they would hide away from everyone and have their own time. Sarah was upset talking about this, but she told me that he never assaulted her, and that it was always consensual. She never wanted to tell me because she was ashamed of the fact that the father of her baby was her uncle. I have since talked to Ethan as well. He denied it to Ellie over text, but told me that it was true. We exchanged a few words back and forth. Even if this was consensual, how could he sleep with his own niece? He had all these, but I wasn't hearing them. He knew of the pregnancy and being Ellie's father the whole time, and he never even bothered to step up to say anything. I have talked to Ellie about it. She says she was upset when she found out, but she always thought she looked like my stepdad's side of the family. It upset me when she mentioned that, because honestly, I see it. It's pretty obvious now. I always knew that Ellie favored whoever her father was because she didn't look like anyone on our side, but I never suspected Ethan. My mother and stepdad have found out, and Ethan told Renee it was true. She has left with their kids to stay with her family. Ethan has tried to reach out to Ellie now, but I don't want her speaking to him. I'm still her father, and I don't think she is safe being in touch with him. Ellie has shown no interest in talking. I asked her why she reached out to him before talking to Sarah or us about it, and she said she just wanted to know his side of the story, but feels betrayed for being lied to. Relevant comments. The commentator asks about the family tree to clarify relationships. OP, I apologize. The reason I was so specific about it is because it's the reason we have always been distant. My father died when I was 20, and we were all devastated. My mother was as well, but she told us months after my father died she was pregnant by a coworker. They married 3 months before Ethan was born. Although we are distant, I'm the closest sibling who communicates, and none of my sisters have anything to do with him. Gracie. Sarah should have fessed up at the start. Did Ethan know Ellie was his when she was adopted? Surely it was no surprise. How could he go 15 years living a lie? Sarah too. This is so messed up. OP, Ethan knew about being the father of Sarah's baby. He wanted Sarah to abort, which is why she wanted to abort in the beginning. But she decided on adoption. Crypto Gambler 952. Maybe it's time that your older daughter do for her daughter what you did for her. OP, Ellie and her boyfriend fully intend on raising this baby as their own, with the support of me, my wife, and his parents. Third story. OP humiliated and shattered my girlfriend's confidence. My girlfriend 25F and I 26 moved in together last year. We live in a fairly safe neighborhood, but during the night, there are some sketchy drunk men hanging around who also scare me quite honestly. My girlfriend, however, wasn't really scared to walk alone at night, and would say that she's just as strong as those men and can take care of herself. My GF is 5'10", and works out 2 times a week. She's indeed very strong compared to most women, but she was obviously delusional to think that her strength was comparable to that of an average man. She would even go as far as saying that if someone should be worried about walking alone at night, then it should be me, as I'm a scrawny 5'9" man. I thought this was one of the situations where it would be better to just shut up than be correct, so I mostly stopped showing my concerns to her. Yesterday, she went out with some of her friends, and told me at 1 a.m. that she'd come alone via public transportation. She doesn't have a license. I told her that it's dangerous, and I should come pick her up, but she insisted on coming by herself. I couldn't sleep till she came home an hour later. She was so angry at me for not trusting her that she could take care of herself. That was when I decided to demonstrate to her the disparity between the strength of men and women. She thought I was joking at first, but when she realized that I was dead serious, she happily took the opportunity to prove how wrong I was. I basically told her to ground me as hard as she could, and then I quickly got out of her grip and grounded her for several minutes till she surrendered. She cried a lot throughout this whole time, and I could also see the fear in her eyes, even though she knew very well that I would never hurt her. I humiliated her. I slept on the couch that night. She didn't want to talk about it in the morning, and said that she's fine. But she's still obviously very upset about it. I feel horrible that I've shattered her confidence like that, and I don't think she will ever feel safe walking alone at night again. I'm probably a really horrible person for doing that, and I wish I could have just trusted her more to take care of herself. I know this relationship is probably over, but is there anything I could do to make up for it? TLDR. I demonstrated to my girlfriend the disparity between the strengths of men and women while trying to teach her a lesson. I humiliated and shattered her confidence in the process, and I feel terrible for what I did. Can I do something to make up for it? Edit. I can't possibly answer all of your comments. I admit that what I did was an assault. I can't express how sorry I am for doing that. I thought I was doing the right thing, but instead I assaulted her by trying to prevent exactly that. Don't learn from me, but please keep yourself safe out there. If not for you, then for the ones who love you. Top comments. Doomer Earl. My girlfriend thought she was tough enough to defend herself, so I assaulted her. You didn't shatter her confidence, buddy. You engaged in domestic violence. Rodatingranama. The F did I just read? You harmed and terrified your girlfriend to win an argument. Protopit Phantom. The problem is that you proved your point, and then took it too far. You shouldn't have made her cry. In fact, you only needed to show her she couldn't hold you down. You need some self-reflection. Update. It's been 2.5 months since my original post, and I thought it'd be appropriate to give you an update after some recent events. I actually already tried to do an update a few days later, but I was such a reek mentally and deleted it shortly after, so I'll get straight to the point. She broke up with me the next day over the phone. She wanted me to admit that I enjoyed seeing her cry, but I kept defending myself till she gave up. But deep down, I knew that she was right. I'm not ashamed to say now that I was a bit aroused by overpowering her so easily and seeing her cry. I know how horrible it sounds, and I'm definitely not proud of it, but I think that acknowledging my flaws and being open about them is the first step in overcoming them. The next few days after the breakup were probably some of the worst days of my life. I thought that I'd lost everything, including my self-respect. I decided to go to therapy and take a break from dating for the foreseeable future. Luckily, I also had the support of my family and close friends, even if they didn't fully agree with my actions. For those of you who say that she needed a reality check, I have to disagree with you on this one. Yes, she overestimated her strength, but she's not dumb enough to actually engage in a fight with a stranger, let alone a drunk man. Being cautious has nothing to do with strength, and now I believe that she was also right to get a bit mad at me for having little to no faith in her. Trying to demonstrate how much stronger I was at 2 a.m. was just plain stupid though. I haven't heard from my ex since she gave me a call 2 days ago. We barely talked about the incident though. It was mostly just catching up and making peace with each other. She's doing pretty well actually. She's about to graduate with her master's and already has a job lined up. She started dating a new guy last month, and I can tell by the way she talked that she's very into him. She signed up for a swing class, which is something that she wanted to do for the longest time, but didn't do because of me, which is also where she met her new boyfriend. What she didn't do, however, was sign up for a self-defense class, which, honestly, I kind of expected. Overall, I was glad to hear how happy she sounded. I'm also doing pretty well myself, although I'm still on my break from dating, and I don't see myself getting into another relationship for at least a year. Last month, I also got to experience how my ex felt when I was overly worried for her safety. I went with my family on a trip to Naples, and while we had our apartment in a fairly safe part of the city, it was just a few blocks away from some sketchy alleys during the night. So when I craved for a good pizza in a specific place during one of the nights there, my mom got very vocal about not wanting me to go to that place because of how sketchy some of the alleys looked. I tried to convince her that she had nothing to worry about, but to no avail. And then it dawned on me that this is probably how my ex felt when I expressed my concerns to her. Eventually, I decided to go to that place the next day during the day instead. It was definitely worth it though. I'm genuinely happy with how things went for both of us, although I still miss her sometimes, and hearing her voice again just made me miss her even more. But I know that it'd probably be better for us to just move on with our lives separately. I also plan to continue with my therapy sessions, even though I feel completely fine now. The reason is very simple. It's just to have someone that I can talk to without feeling judged. Reddit isn't really the best place for that, as you could probably tell from my original post, but I still want to thank everyone who commented and gave their opinion. Top comments. Comfortable Yam 561. I was a bit aroused by overpowering her so easily and seeing her cry. That's a hectic statement to make, dude. I'm at a loss for words. Definitely, seeing a therapist for those types of dark thoughts is a good idea. Immortal Jill. I'm very glad she broke up with you. You are 26 years old, and you took your girlfriend to the ground. I would have sent my uncles after you after that, TBH. The fact that you admit you were aroused by that. This is why we say all men. Women will never be safe with men like you in the world. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends. OP's Sil opens up a Pandora box of abusive relatives. I'm almost 30 years old and have a fraternal younger twin. My parents had us late after fertility issues and had been told their entire pregnancy I was a boy. Severe gender disappointment, neglect, and copious amounts of emotional, financial, and emotional abuse I can explain if needed in the comments, but my parents are irredeemable, and I will never speak to them again. Basically ruined my entire childhood and teenage years. I left home at 18, and when I asked for my papers, IDs, SSNS, etc., I got them plus a cease and desist order from my parents. I haven't spoken to them and don't plan on it. Recently, my estranged twin sent me an email on my work email, which is attached to my new name because my parents gave me a Unix name that I legally changed when I was 21. The email was basically a sad vent or rant about how she wished I was around, and how she thought our relationship should be because we're twins. Everyone says we should be so close, and her basically demanding in a passive-aggressive way invites our family to my upcoming nuptials. I don't know how she found out, had my work email, or was concerned she had some sort of memory issue. TW, physical abuse ahead. When we were younger, my sister realized she was the golden child and could torture me via my parents. She used to hide her things in my room and send my dad to go get her stolen stuff back from my tiny room in the basement. Results varied from being padlocked in the basement and only being let out for school or mealtimes. I had a small bathroom with a sink in the unfinished basement to physical beatings. My dad and mom both used to hit me. I fell a lot down the stairs or slipped a lot. My twin, when we were 17, shoved me down the basement stairs. I ended up breaking my arm, getting a concussion, and needing stitches on a wound on my head. It was the worst injury I'd ever had. My parents forced me to back up the story of me falling because they didn't want my sister to get in trouble. My friends at the time helped me leave 2 months later, after graduation, because my sister enjoyed hurting me. I found out 3 weeks ago that my husband Sil22F had posted previously about my estranged family, which isn't a secret. I am very honest with what happened to me, and with the state of my estrangement with that family on her blog Ray influencer. She left out a lot. Her followers encouraged her to mend the relationship between me and my family. My twin's emails suddenly became screaming phone calls and threats, so I sought out a restraining order, but stopped at a cease and desist from my twin, because she suddenly stopped the harassment. I thought it was over. I was very wrong. At my husband's parents' house during dinner, she stood up and told me she had a surprise for me. She told me she had driven my sister up a 26+ hour drive, so we could reconnect and be a family again. I have CPTSD from my twin. Her parents were mortified and took me to the back room, and my husband went straight to calling the police and yelling at his sister. Apparently, she didn't think the abuses against me were that bad because my twin lied and told her she never laid a hand on me. My twin was out in her car, and when the police showed up, she turned on the waterworks. My sister tried defending her until my husband's mother told the police about the cease and desist order. The police took my twin to the airport to take an immediate flight home at my sister's expense. She was given a formal warning. Our police force has its hands tied until she does this again. No arrests on first warnings. In the weeks that followed, my sister was completely ostracized from her family. My husband and her father ripped her a new one for pulling this stunt. Her mother refused to speak to her because she was so angry that someone would try to force a victim to see their abuser. Mill is a former DV advocate. My husband has agreed to give me the final say on when if I'd be alright to hear Sil's apology, which will be a ton of bullshit, I'm sure. The problem is, I don't want to see Sil ever again. I know she had high hopes to be a godparent or good aunt when we have children, but finding out what she's done cuts deep. I don't want to see her or speak to her again. And I have no idea how to say this to her because the level of betrayal and hurt I have in my heart is huge. It's been 3 weeks, but I feel the same as I did before. I've known her since I started seeing my husband years ago. I watched her grow up and support her. She knew the whole story down to the smallest detail, but chose not to believe me. How do I even begin to approach this? Edit. Thanks to everyone. I was busy today, so I didn't get to respond to everyone's comments, but I did read them all. Thank you so much, kind strangers, for the awards. I've decided to write a burn letter while at work, and it's helped immensely, but I'm not going to send it. My husband is behind me 100% in my decision to go ahead and send Sil a cease and desist letter, and tell her she's not welcome around us for the time being. I've told my Mill and Phil that I don't want to speak to her, and that I honestly don't think I ever want to. I want her to stay away. Mill wasn't upset about the holidays we were set to host this year when I said Sil would not be welcome in our home. Sil's blog posts were removed, and every other trace of my life being posted on her page, photos with us at our wedding, happy birthday messages, etc., has been removed. I didn't even know these were on her blog, but she complied by removing all of it. As for my twin and estranged family, legal things are in the works. I have therapy set up for the next 2 months, and will be looking into anti-anxiety medications to help. I'll update you when I have more news. Update 1. Our attorney called us, and our restraining orders, which we have waited 3 weeks for, have finally been approved. My parents will be served this week, as will my sister, provided we have their correct address on file. They live on the other side of the country. Fingers crossed. After speaking to my therapist and getting on some new anxiety medicine, I decided to sit down and talk to my ills and my husband about what had happened. It had been 3 weeks, and you guys are right. I'm allowed to be hurt and upset about this for a long time. My therapist said I needed to prioritize myself and my healing over my people-pleasing behaviors. I wrote a letter but decided I'd not send it because I didn't want Sil to use it as ammunition on her blog for sympathy points. So Mill and Phil have 5 children. Eldest Bill, older Sil, my husband, and then Sil. Eldest Bill has a best friend, Middle Bill, that the ills adopted when he was a teen. When this all went down 3 weeks ago, the oldest Bill and older Sil were present. Middle Bill wasn't. I guess Middle Bill is one of the family members that babies Sil. I explained that I was thinking 6 months minimum for no contact or being around Sil. Mill thought it was a good timeline to teach Sil that this behavior wasn't going to fly, and Phil agreed. No issues there. But when Millful explained to their children that Sil was on timeout with us for her behavior, Middle Bill and his girlfriend got all mad about it. I got a text today, thinking it was a friendly one, and opened it too. I failed to see why you'd ban Sil from the holidays for a simple mistake. It seems kind of excessive and really inconveniences a lot of us for the holidays. You can't even be around her. Grow up. I really hope you have a plan for the holidays. What are you going to do? Force her to stay at someone's house while the whole family goes out or something? Honestly, she's a child. She's allowed to make mistakes. Bad enough, Phil threw her out, and now you're going to take the holidays from her too. Mill and Phil decided they were done housing Sil when she paid for a perfectly good room in an apartment 30 minutes away, where the roommates are driving Sil crazy, only because they're all working from home due to COVID. Mill calls it a harsh dose of reality, and Phil says it's a month overdue. I just handed my husband my phone and decided I was done for the day. I told him to handle it however he sees fit, just not from my phone, because not my circus and not my monkeys. My husband sent screenshots to himself, and just sent out a massive text to the whole family on their chat. It's been brought to my attention that some of you don't agree with my wife's decision to exclude Sil from our home during the upcoming holidays. After some thought, I've decided that I don't feel comfortable hosting the holidays this year like planned. I'd like to take a break from everyone until they know the whole story. And anyway, because of COVID, I think we should all stay home this year. Unless someone else would like to host. Cheers, husband. This is very my husband. We had already talked about how I didn't feel up for holidays this year. We have the bigger home of our nearby family, and have hosted for 2 years, and he decided this might be the year to take a step back from it. I like the idea because my anxiety is at an all-time high, and I'm having nightmares because of what happened. He asked me to read it before he sent it. I got a few texts earlier from his grandparents, who spoil Sil that they needed to talk to us ASAP, but I forgot to charge my personal phone. The husband also forgot to charge his. He missed a few calls from his aunt and uncle, plus one from his middle brother. We're assuming he's pissed. We have a bet going to see if someone's dumb enough to come by our house tomorrow. Everyone knows we have tomorrow off and try to talk us out of it. The husband said he's going to answer the door naked and say we're busy. See who comes around after that. Update. Gran and Gramps did come by. My husband answered the door with a beer in one hand and his flagpole flying free in the wind. They were pretty disgusted and left immediately, but they were pretty much extremely angry. They confirmed what we thought. They think that we're the ones tearing the family apart. Needless to say, my husband and I will be taking holidays off, probably indefinitely, with his grandparents. I sent them a long text about me choosing to heal and taking time off, rather than being the forgiving doormat that they expect me to be when it comes to Sil. Her actions have consequences, and they need to let Millville handle this one. Update 2. I'm a midwife. I work mostly in telehealth at the moment, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm currently self-isolating because we have a woman at viability in 3 weeks, and I need to be COVID tested or COVID-free before I even consider going into the office. Gran and Gramps showed up with Sil in tow at my clinic, which was locked because we weren't expecting any appointments and aren't taking drop-ins without prior authorization. So they ended up at our locked door, and just did the reasonable thing and left, right? Nah. This is JN territory. They're pissed, and now want to yell at someone. They banged on the door for 10 minutes, until my clinic's RN came out of her office with her phone on. We have audio and video recording inside, which is legal per the posted signs on the property. She told them she wasn't letting them in, who they were, and if it was a medical emergency to seek attention at the hospital. This is the whole reason we have audio recording inside the building, Saya. They said they needed to speak to me, and the RN said too bad. She then dialed the non-emergency line and reported them for attempting to enter the clinic when the clinic wasn't open. She then just went back to her office and sat down, like she's supposed to. Gran and Gramps got met by an officer who happened to be nearby and talked to them. He then called me because I had GG blocked. I'm gobsmacked here. They brought this selfish boss to my workplace, a place of very delicate health and immunocompromised people and babies, and demanded to be let in. Yeah, no, I'm furious. I called my boss. I told them what was going on. We called the cops back and told them to write them a warning for trespassing. They have now been given one. My husband's pissed and called them, practically shouting down the phone their excuse. Sil needs to give me an apology so we can all go back to being a family again. I took the phone and reminded them I have final say in if they meet any potential great-grandchildren. We hung up and called Mill. Ever hear an angry Swedish lady? Mills are pissed over the phone, and I can hear it. My husband's telling me that the last time she was this angry, it ended poorly for the other person. He took our phones and blocked everyone. We've decided to stop visiting, taking calls, and just focusing on ourselves for the next year. He's mad and upset, apologizing every hour or so for his grandparents. We're trying to deal with my parents and twin on the other side of this restraining order received. They signed for it, no explosions yet, but my twin is losing her mind. I decided today that I'd up my therapy to 3 times a week. I'm so tired. Update 3. So the restraining order was delivered. My twin, sperm donor, and egg donor all received them. They were signed for, and I heard nothing from the parents, which was weird. I expected my egg donor to come unglued because I am the only one capable of having biological children, and that's my obsession with egg donors. Today, I woke up to the police at my front door. Yes, they know we have given the other parties restraining orders, but this welfare check was called in by my Jane grandfather. He's a cheating, scummy bastard that treats my twin like the sun shines out her ass. He apparently called them and spun a tale about my husband. Trigger warning. My husband apparently beats me every day, refuses to allow me outside, holds me hostage at home, and routinely degrades me in front of family or his friends. The police said flat out they didn't believe it because Jane grandfather claims all his evidence is from my estranged twin, who is not allowed to be a witness because of the row. We let them in and showed them our home, our dogs, and the ducklings. They loved the ducklings. They told us they'd file a report to counter the original report, and that they'd be sending a copy to our attorney. Now we won't get any welfare checks from them, because it's obvious they're fake and a waste of time. My attorney contacted my JNG father and sent a long-winded statement of basically, "We'll send you a cease and desist if you continue," and only slapped my name on it. We figured my husband's involvement would further their alternate reality. My Jamont, the woman who helped me escape, sent me screenshots of a text she received from my estranged twin. Jamont says to be on the lookout for her deranged ass. The screenshots were sent to our attorney. Twin's text basically reads as some sort of angry rant. Copied and details removed below. Eldest is married to a sociopath. She would never not invite us to her wedding or cut us off without someone making her do it. We're her family for F's sake, and she just cuts us off. I saw her. She looked awful and skinny, like they were not feeding her. She had a black eye. She had a bandage on her hand and scratches down her arms. Her clothes were filthy. I'm telling you, she's in danger, and the police won't listen to me because of a piece of paper. I can't stand by and watch my sister get murdered because this man is holding her hostage. His family doesn't even like him and is afraid of him. If you are not going to help, at least do me a favor and tell her that she has to contact me because she needs to leave him. So in Twin's reality, I'm an abused spouse who only does what my husband tells me. Because it can't possibly be the physical and emotional abuse she put me through when we were teenagers. Her last text was very not okay sounding. I pray to God that she doesn't get pregnant with this sociopath. What if he hurts her and her baby? Egg donor is concerned about this too. What if he beats her while she's pregnant and murders their baby? We forwarded all this to our attorney. He's working on protecting us from these kinds of false allegations by creating a paper trail of statements and evidence of our happy marriage. But she's still losing her mind on the other side of the country. We're locking down our jobs and bosses by informing them of what's going on. Not taking any chances. Also, Gran and Grams are not speaking to us currently. We need to apologize for our behavior. The husband told them to expect to wake up and find 200 plastic pink flamingos on their lawn in lacy women's underwear if they continued. Yes, we own that many pink flamingos. He was in a fraternity in college. Update 4. So Sil broke into our home. Things of little to no value were taken. She took Mill's car and fled to her new boyfriend's house, a few states away. The Ills have cut her off completely, except for things they're legally supposed to provide, and told her to never ever come home. We moved to an apartment in 3 days, and told no one where we were going. Sil had a breakdown with Mill on the phone before hers was disconnected, screaming that I was a liar. I turned the whole family against her. She should have been warned before they cut her off. And she said until DH divorces me, she's never coming home. On the other side, I am taking a leave of absence from my job, because I developed a stress rash that turned into hives. I spent 2 days in bed and woke up to a call from a friend from college. In college, I had the emergency surgery that messed up my insides and caused the damage that led to my tubes being defunct, and I needed to spend weeks taking it easy. My college dorm saw me carted out in an ambulance, and their huge support got me through it. This friend has been my rock through all of that. But the news I could do with is recent. I hadn't remembered to message him about it, because he's busy with his new baby, a healthy girl, and his husband. Apparently friend got a request and message from twin saying, she's worried about me and my unborn baby, that DH is beating me and getting worse daily, and that she needs someone to check on me for her, because DH forced me to get a restraining order. Now my name is really common since I changed it, think along the lines of Jane Smith. He told her she just had the wrong person. is Jane Smith has a pacifist husband, and last time he checked, she couldn't get pregnant because of a surgery. He assumed the wrong person. Twin sent him an angry response and insisted that no, she has the right, Jane Smith. And what do you mean she can't get pregnant? He blocked her and called me. He apologized, but I honestly felt relieved. I didn't have to do it, someone else did. Immediately after our attorney got an angry, screaming phone call from egg donor, he let go of voicemail. I haven't heard it, but it's something along the lines of, I need a copy of her medical record because I'm her mother. Jamont got a phone call, and instead of listening to the abuse, Jamont assumed I'd told egg donor about my medical trauma and just told her, it's old news, egg donor. Everyone knows about that surgery. And hung up. So egg donor and twin are now freaking out and sending me emails violating the restraining order demanding I explain why I had my tubes tied. How dare I do something like that when they counted on me to give them grandchildren? And the email straight out said it. We had hoped you would carry a son for a twin, but your selfishness is an abhorrent affront to God. I'm just a means to an end, and they really don't care. Thank whatever old God is listening. Our attorney is already on it and wants to see them go away. Update 5. This is marked advice. Not okay, because I'm getting constant DMs from people urging me to seek legal counsel. We have an attorney. We are speaking with law enforcement. Anyways, Sil is in police custody. To make a long story short, Middle Bill had her at his house. His girlfriend witnessed some suspicious behavior, and she had some serious blackouts. It turned out to be drugs. Middle Bill was hoping to get her to sober up and get her to a treatment program because she'd die in jail. Well, he's now single, his parents are furious, and we now know what was going on with Sil in the background. GF turned her in and moved to her sister's. She also turned over some seriously concerning messages between Bill and Grandgramps. We sent her flowers and wine. We sent the screenshots to Mill and Phil. DH was heartbroken. Everyone else knew she was using her and never said a word to us. The entire situation has left him utterly shattered and torn, as have her parents. He told me last night that if he knew she was on drugs, he'd have gotten her help long before any of this could have happened. He blames himself and says that maybe it could have been prevented. I told him she made these decisions, under the influence or not, and would have to live with the consequences. We went to bed and didn't think anything else of it. I woke up to phone calls from Giant, letting me know that the estranged twin had a meltdown, apparently 2 days earlier. Twin had been taken to a specialized clinic after making some threats. It was the fault of egg donors and sperm donors. They had apparently told Twin that it was entirely her fault. I had decided to be child-free. It's a new narrative since someone told them I didn't in fact have my tubes tied. She's the one who threw me down the stairs and tried to kill me. She's the one who called me vicious names and insulted me constantly. She's the one who tried to poison me. I have allergies, and also destroyed every relationship I ever had as a teen. It's no wonder I turned out to be such a terrified, traumatized woman who refuses to have children. I was raised with a monster. Except we were both raised by monsters then. But no, in their narrative, they did nothing wrong. They were angels to us. Giant said that Jan grandfather had called her to relay the tragic news that her twin was, essentially clinically insane. And let me tell you, something stinks like the effing darkest pits of a garbage dump. Did Twin do all of it? She's being cared for by a clinic. If they think they can throw one of their children under the bus to save face with me, they're wrong. Play B games and win B prizes. Enjoy the prize of losing both your kids, one of which is a mess, and the other is leaving the country in 8 weeks to escape you, and let you live out the rest of your sad, pathetic lives alone. Good effing riddance. But there. An update. I'm going to go scratch the office cat now, and see if she'll snuggle me. Update 6. My biological parents' egg and sperm donors, as I refer to them, are in trouble. I told you they tried blaming my estranged twin for all of the abuse I went through, as if I'd somehow forgotten how much they abused me and allowed my twin to abuse me as well, and it didn't work. I never reached out. I'm glad I didn't fall for it because half the story was a lie. Yes, twin is in the hospital because of a meltdown, but she wasn't committed by our biological parents. Our biological parents abused her for 3 days straight. They withheld food and water, woke her up at all hours to scream at her, and didn't stop even when she begged them to leave her alone. They also refused to let her leave. She didn't get put in a hospital because of her meltdown. She went to urgent care because they had hit or thrown things at her for 3 days off and on. She was injured. She had the meltdown while she was being seen, which caused her to be taken to the hospital. Her doctor and mental health team reported it and got the police involved. At this point in time, we have been told that there will be charges against them. Their reputations are absolutely ruined. Our lawyer said they'd be lucky if their jail sentence wasn't a minimum of a few years. We no longer have anything to worry about with them. We leave in 30 days. We've told DH's family, and there's a whole mess going on with them learning. We are leaving for sure. But our move hasn't been sorted, and we have a lot to do, so I'm focusing on our move. We can deal with his family after, DH says. Fingers crossed. Update 7. We left. We didn't tell a soul we were leaving. It worked out in our favor. We landed a few days ago, are in quarantine now at a friend's house, and the animals are with us. Everyone's happy and healthy, not me, but I'll explain later. DH feels utterly relaxed seeing his friends. He's back to being his jokey self. He called his family yesterday to tell them we were officially gone. It didn't go over well with a few of them. Gran and Gramps were furious. They demanded to know why he'd left the US and gone back home, stating that we wouldn't have stable jobs or a stable home in our home country. DH Gray rocked like a champ. Thank you, kind redditors, for helping me explain to him what it was and how to use it. He explained that he would still be financially reliable if they needed something. We've paid for medications out of pocket for them before. But we aren't coming back. We intend on staying here. Our real estate agent, with whom we're working, showed us virtually a few nice homes in the area a while ago. We have put out an offer and gotten a response. Which brings us to why I'm sick. The house we want has 3 rooms plus an in-home office with a big kitchen, and would be perfect for a family. We had interviews before we left with the fertility clinic, all virtual, where my new doctor went over my file. He approved us, pending some tests in a few weeks, for starting treatment at their clinic. We don't have a start date months away, but I stopped my migraine medication in the meantime under his guidance, as it takes a while to fully leave my system. We're switching to a different one soon, so I feel all sorts of sick right now with migraines. DH also can't have lots of coffee, per his suggestion, so he's been grumpy in the mornings. DH relayed only my short illness to Mill when she called to check on us, and Gran was in the background. She made a passive-aggressive comment. People shouldn't be running away to have babies away from their families. It isn't right. And DH lost his SHT because he was already grumpy. He's never yelled at her before, but he told her if anyone was to be blamed, it was her husband, her, and Sil. Gran started wailing, her typical go-to, and DH told her to shove it. I don't want to hear fake cries from the kettle today. He retracted our offer to financially help them if they were going to behave like this. Mill said goodbye and hung up. Now we're awful people, and a chunk of the family on one side is demanding we apologize. We refused. Sil also reached out to us, probably aware of herself, now that she's been forcibly made sober by being in jail, but we refused to contact her. I can post a transcript of the voicemail later if anyone wants to read it. Also, our attorney informed us that the charges against my biological parents were dropped. No explanation. Twin was checked into a care facility for immediate psychiatric inpatient treatment, and I know my parents did that intentionally. They're now playing, our daughter is unstable, and we're victims of her abuse, like they didn't raise a monster in their own image, and are now suffering the consequences of enabling her. They reached out to our attorney to possibly have some mediation on our restraining order, and our attorney promptly used that opportunity to inform them we'd immigrated to another country and wouldn't be returning to the US. He's no longer our attorney after X date, and he hung up. At our attorney's insistence, I decided to call their pastor a week ago, and had a heartfelt conversation with him over video about the situation. I explained my side of things, and informed him that I was severely uncomfortable with them being involved in some church stuff. He had some tears of his own, looked at the stuff I linked him to emails, screenshots of text messages, and their voicemails, and thanked me for being brave and praised me for finding happiness in my own faith. I cried a lot because I'd never had their previous pastors believe me before. He told me that he would be handling it with severe urgency. This was all told in confidence. We have confirmation they were removed from the church activities a day later, which leads us to today. This morning we received an email from them to my husband's account how they found it. I don't know, that basically made me want to throw his phone. I'll post it if someone wants to read it. Basically, we left perfectly on time because they intended to buy a home a few hours from us and ask us to join them in their counseling, while they made it up to opt for her neglectful childhood. Of course, we'd have to drop the restraining order anyway. That's been the last 18 days. Thanks for the people reaching out to check on me. I really appreciate it, and the links to all the strategies and methods you guys have used. Very helpful. Edit. You guys are so sweet, but we're not in Sweden. A lot of families in the 1800s immigrated for work to different countries, and lots didn't return. She practices the traditions of both countries and speaks the languages, but she considers herself Swedish. Update 8. So for starters, I found out someone tried to open a credit account in my name. Luckily, my husband was purchasing our new dream home we move on Monday, with his own credit, and no big deal. I already had my credit frozen. I also require an IRS PIN for my taxes, and my SSN is locked, as well, a long process. This was to prevent my biological parents from opening accounts in my name when I left home. They did threaten that a lot. You know how they were buying a home near us? Well, they didn't get the offer accepted. An outstanding debt of $180K in my egg donor's name kind of ruined it. I found out she spent $90K on my twins' wedding and honeymoon. Then she financed the divorce, and the rest was debt related to other things. Giant relayed this all to me because she's hearing from Jay and grandfather, who is slowly turning Jim. Jot warned me to check my credit because suddenly they could afford to rent a nice house. And we were bragging about it because it's down the street from my old home. It's near our new family. We can't wait to meet them. I was met with Phil muttering about things that would land him in jail, and Mill brandishing a rolling pin at her phone when we FaceTimed them. Yeah, they were using my name as a second person on the lease. Well, it didn't go through because of the freeze. She got asked a lot of verification questions, and her application was absolutely denied. So with just my sperm donor credit, which is also SHT, they didn't get the nice rental house. Or the house they wanted to buy. Also, their house that they sold, had a lien. I barely have any money from the sale. They were sofa surfing at J&G's father's house, and he was livid that the application was denied, for no reason. Jaunt clued him in. He kicked them out. He told them he'd have no such financially dependent loans in his lovely home. So they're currently sleeping in their car. I already filed for identity theft, even though the applications were denied and nothing happened, but it's attempted fraud. Still serious. Needless to say, Jay and grandfather said kicking them out was met with lots of crying and accusations, and he was horrified of their behavior as adults. He remarked that maybe I was doing the right thing by keeping them at arm's length, because while they were over, every time they'd fight, the two of them would get physical. He also told them that they'd be lucky to even be allowed in his home again. His brother stole his identity when they were younger. Jay and grandfather ended up paying the amount owed as a young new husband, and it ruined buying his first house. He still doesn't fully believe what they've done to me, but all in all, I wish I was there to see their downfall. It seems they may be running out of places to go, and with the estranged twins' care suddenly being passed to Jay and grandfather, I'm certain there's a storm coming. But I'm thousands of miles away, safe with my husband, and currently excited to be starting our IVF journey in January. So excited. I feel like I'm on cloud 9 right now. Does it make me a bad person if I wish they'd go sequester themselves to a deserted island and rot? Update 9. I guess sperm donor finally had enough. He got his old job back, moved into a friend's house, and told egg donor that everything that went wrong in their marriage was her fault. It turned into a violent encounter, An egg donor went to go scratch out his eyes with her hands. He threw her out of his friend's house and basically told her that he didn't have a family because of her. He was apparently unaware of her using my credit to try for that house. And when he found out, that's where he drew the line. Not at beating me, not at torturing me, not at screaming constantly at everyone, or any of the other terrible things she's done. Oh no, it was pissing off Jam grandfather, the man that he didn't want to piss off because he wanted all his money. Then, I guess according to Giant, he realized that he could just dump egg donor and start over. He could have a loving, caring wife, start a new family, have sons, and just leave. They have no assets, so a divorce would be simple. Egg donor made it easy because she immediately assumed that I'd gotten to sperm donor. He cleaned up his life and left her. He had to be talking to me because I'm the only other one who did that. So she went at him a second time, demanding he give her my information. And this time he decided he was calling the police. She was throwing rocks and screaming at him, a full-on lawn tantrum. And when they tried to stop her, she went crazy on an officer. She tried biting and kicking, but finally went for slapping and screaming. Well, she's in jail now. Assault on an officer and pending psychiatric evaluation. She probably won't be released anytime soon. I've since learned that sperm donor is kissing Jam grandfather's arse to be let back into the family. Joke's on him. Jam grandfather arranged estranged twins care for a long-term care facility that he'll bankroll, and he decided he was going to sell his house. He already rewrote his will and left everything to Giant. He wrote me a lengthy 9-page apology where he acknowledged literally everything he's ever done wrong, down to stealing candy from me as a child during Halloween, and is moving to where Giant lives. Sperm donor's on his own. The egg donor is screwed. I think I'm free. I don't have to worry anymore. With them being busy tearing each other apart and younger Sil being sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, I think I'm free. Which is a weird sentence to say. I feel like I'm jinxing myself. IVF is going so well. We have our new happy lives, I think. I think I don't need to be back here anytime soon. I hope. OP has been active and seems to be doing fine in their new country. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends. Entitled Future Sil said, I'm not pretty enough to be a mo at her wedding. So my brother called off the wedding, and she went absurd and ruined her life, and blamed us for everything. Look, my brother M38 Aaron is super smart book-wise, but can be a fool when it comes to affairs of the heart. I am not mad at him about this, and I don't want to hurt him, but Heather F27 is the Sith Lord of a woman, powerful, manipulative, and ugly underneath their masks. It stinks more because I introduced them. Heather and I F32 met playing D&D, and we stayed in touch after that group disbanded. She met Aaron at my birthday party, and they dated in secret for a year before telling me and our mutual friends. They got engaged at my next birthday party, and he asked me to be his best woman, a female best man, because he and I have always been incredibly close. And Heather frowned at him and said that was ridiculous, and I obviously should be her mo since we're friends and a female and woman go on the bride's side. The moment became awkward, and I told them I was happy to stand for them on either side, because at the end of the day, it's about them as a couple, not individuals, and whatever they wanted worked. I'm an idiot. I can list in great detail all the disturbances in the force that should have told me she was far more trouble than she was worth, even if she were encrusted in diamonds. But my brother had been deliriously happy, and I rolled a 1 on insight, I guess. The short list of problems was that Heather assumed the mo was also the wedding planner, point of contact to the bride, free makeup artist, and paid for the bridesmaid dresses and the bachelorette party. I compromised by committing to doing the makeup for free. I did modeling in my 20s and know how to make do, helping plan the wedding with her and my brother. But I could not financially pay for the dresses she wanted. I would pay for mine, but not the others and the party, so I offered to do one. And she picked the dresses the more expensive, and I paid it without complaint. She had all the bridesmaids, except for me, pay for the whole bachelorette trip, even those who couldn't come but blasted me in the group chat about it, like apologizing for the cost of the trip, since OP's not financially contributing, which led to the girls asking me how and why I ended up not paying anything. Things like that kept happening. I am going to pause here and say my brother is a senior staff engineer at a huge tech company and teaches programming at a huge school, so he makes plenty of money. When I asked my brother why he wasn't helping pay for stuff at the wedding, he looked incredibly puzzled and asked what I meant. I immediately shut up, realizing I stepped in it. And he said Heather insisted she pay for her half of the wedding, and they joint pay the joint parts, cake, venue, etc. To say to her haters, she's not marrying him for his money. I know I am the for stepping in on that one, I admit. There's more, but I don't want this to be a novel, so I will jump to the part I might be morally off for. I hosted the bridesmaids and Heather at a planning party she wanted, and we sat, working on odds and ends and drinking lots of wine, when one of the girls, Amber F20, asked if she could change her hair color. Her own wedding is coming up, and she got a long waitlisted spot with a salon on her wishlist to dye her hair, and she wanted to go red. For a note, I am black and use weave to shade and style my hair in crimson red twists. Amber said she would want to know about my shade, and that it complemented my skin tone. Heather chuckled a bit at that, and I kind of looked at her like, what? And she said that it was fine, and she's no bridezilla, but she would prefer only one of us look that tacky. I felt hurt as Heather knew me before I went red a year ago, and back then told me how great I looked, and that I glowed, and now I'm tacky. I asked her if she meant it that way, and she shrugged and said, it's about the people, not how good they look. I didn't get it, and the other girls started chiming in, and Heather just said, oh my god, calm down. I didn't mean anything wrong. I won't let OP ruin my wedding entirely. It's really okay. We are all going to start looking different in our 30s, etc. I was the oldest of all the girls there, and I kind of chuckled it away and said Heather was the one who gives me compliments on how much I still look young. And like I did when I did fashion modeling, nothing big, just commercials and small local runways, as it once was my dream to be like on Victoria's Secret or whatever. And she snorted something like, "You can't do runway now, and you know it." Okay. At this point, I flat out asked her if she had something to say to me, and she said that since I had been so sensitive about her asking me to do things, be a wedding planner, pay for the party, etc. For her wedding, she didn't want to bring it up, but she wanted me to change my look back to when you were so pretty like when we met, which meant going back to my natural light brown hair, losing weight. I am 5'7" and 120 pounds, and wearing shapewear to fit in a smaller dress. Then she said, "Look at these lovely ladies, right? It would mean a lot to me if you all could shine up there." I said that was hurtful, and I liked how I look now. I had lots of body issues trying for that dream in my 20s and skipped meals, drank too much and worse, and hated my body. Now I do have curves, and I love them. I offered to wear a wig for the wedding if my hair color was an issue, and she just got quiet and changed the subject, to keep everyone from watching me get upset. I just shook the wine bottle, laughed something about it getting empty, and said I was going to the kitchen to get a fresh bottle. Heather was there after a couple minutes and started saying, "Hey, you know I love you no matter how you look, babe," and I just shot, "But I look tacky." And she shrugged and said that's why she didn't want to ask me. She knew I wouldn't focus on anything other than perceived slights. I handed her the new wine bottle to bring in, and I stepped outside to calm down. It's still on my mind. The wedding is this summer, and I am kicking myself for being sensitive. It's messing with my head. Now I can't even dream of standing up in front of everyone we all know in a bright dress. The mauve dress is a different color and cut than the other bridesmaids the way I am. But a part of me thinks I am letting her under my skin and should not worry about how I look. I don't want to be mauve regardless though. If I step down, I don't even know what I would tell my brother. Sorry for the nerdy references. It's a coping mechanism. Edit. A couple of facts and things I didn't think to add. Brother has a prenup. It wasn't really a trust thing, but he just figured it would be there for them to point at and refute the rumors that she was with him for money. And I am told she enthusiastically agreed. She does not have a full-time job. She works retail and does some theater work at my job as an actor. She lives with her sister and her sister's spouse in the city. As she is in school, she took a few years to go from high school to college. Her sister is kind of how we met, as she is part of my gaming group. I do not work in software, nor do I make a lot of money compared to my brother. I am single, live alone, and make enough money in a non-profit theater to survive. Aaron, and I don't have any other family. We've been each other's family since I came out as bisexual and our grandfather disowned me. Aaron went without contact out of support for me. We are also not biological siblings, as Aaron is adopted, and I am a miracle baby. Our dad walked out when I was a kid, and our mom passed away when I was a teen. TLDR. My former friend and future still thinks I look tacky and need to lose weight, so I don't feel comfortable being Mo and being in the pictures. Comments. Buttered Crumpet 09. You do get that she has you as Mo, because she does not want you hanging out and spending that time with your brother, right? OP. I actually never thought about this, but it makes sense. I have barely had time to be with my brother, and only get to occasionally text here and there. My brother is great, but I worry if I even try to explain, he will get defensive. He's really the only family I have left. BD 10D 528. Heather is gaslighting you. She's making mean comments, and then acting like you are overreacting to what she says. NTA for wanting to step down. However, know that she'll make you the villain regardless of what you decide to do. And if you choose to step down, she'll say she knew you would flake, and planning was so much harder because you misled them, while also making SHTTY comments about how she's glad to not have someone so tacky at the wedding party. Also, 120 pounds at 5'7" is slim, so she can fall about wanting you at your modeling weight. OP. When I was in my 20s, I was underweight. It was unhealthy. I will never go back to that. I don't want to ever go back to that. I was an unhappy person, vying for a goal that wasn't good for me mentally or physically. Heather knew that, which is why it hurt more than if a stranger said it. Fustercluckered. Personally, I wouldn't go and tell my brother exactly why and what he's marrying. That you will go to his next marriage. Instilled ink. Heather is a total B. You are an NTA. Either way you go, she is going to make things miserable. Personally, I'd want out of the wedding party, and I'd likely try never to speak to her again. Or the rest of the friend group TBH, like she was horribly rude to both you and the other friend who wanted to change her hair color, and no one called her out. Everyone just sat there and took that abuse. Ouch. If you go that route, I'd suggest a simple message to your brother explaining that you're sorry, but due to some extremely hurtful things that Heather has said, you just can't be at the wedding party. I'm sure she will still talk crap about you to him, but at least you'd have given him a preemptive heads up. OP. The other girls did try to speak up, but Heather shut them down quickly. Some even texted me after apologizing for it happening. One backed Heather, but that's the only bridesmaid who isn't somehow a mutual acquaintance or friend of ours, and is Heather's BFF. And she has hated me from the beginning as I am Mo instead of her. Rian 1 made it. Honestly, you should all quit. What is the downside to bailing on this loony? She can't do jack if you all quit. But you know this wedding shouldn't happen to begin with. Work on that. OP actually, she comes with money, and they can make things unpleasant. Her dad is also a raging racist. I am African American. And he didn't like Aaron since he is from outside our country. Update. My brother knows everything now, 6 hours later. I immediately got comments saying the same thing. I would be the odd to not tell my brother the truth. It was devastating, and I admit some of the comments were worded in a way that really hurt. But at the end of the day, I was asked if I was okay with Aaron marrying a person who would hurt him, and something in my brain clicked. I love my brother more than anything, and I realize now that I was being spineless and selfish to not come to him with this. From the beginning of my being Mo, Heather monopolized my time. I can pinpoint exact moments when I was slowly pushed out of regular contact with Aaron. If I was not working or doing my side gigs, all my time was spent on the phone with her, or footing the bill at dinners and lunches with her over the wedding. Someone mentioned that she was trying to keep me and Aaron from spending time, and I realized they were right. Anytime I called him, and she was there, she would take the phone to talk about wedding stuff, etc. I would be so worn out at the end of my days that I wouldn't even reply to texts. I feel so stupid. I was a coward, and so afraid of losing my only family. I forgot to be family to him, and that's hard to even type. But it's true. Aaron called me early. Apparently, a bridesmaid who was at my house the night I mentioned in my last post, Sophia F26, who was one of our good friends, apparently suggested he reach out to me. But when he asked why, she didn't say. I didn't realize it, but I have been miserable since that party at my house. I didn't know how much I seemed off. It was brought to my attention how far out I seemed in public, and how withdrawn I've been in general. Aaron called and asked if I was alright. I know the wedding is stressful. Heather has been a wreck. And I snapped and just started crying and hung up. He was at my place within the hour, and I told him everything. I don't remember seeing him so mad in my life. I am skipping a bunch to be brief. He asked me how much I spent on the wedding, and I just handed him my phone with my bank app and the bridesmaid chat all open, and he scrolled and asked me why I would not mention this to him. I explained, and he shook his head. He wrapped me in a hug, told me not to worry, and ordered us food. After he left, Sophia texted me and Aaron in a new group chat with the three of us some recordings from when she was making TikToks and the like at various bridesmaid events with Heather in the background and nothing more. I saw it, and Aaron saw it. But he hasn't said anything yet other than I will use a fake name for myself as I have the others. Francesca, turn off your phone if you can. I will drop by tonight. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I'm on my couch, drinking and waiting. Quick random update. I am a bottle of wine in, so forgive my dyslexia. I am scrolling through Reddit and Facebook, and Heather has blocked me on Facebook. Through an app for my texts, I can see she's texted me many times. I have opened nothing, and I won't until Aaron arrives. In the meantime, I am truly in good tears over your support and advice. I was never a strong person, that was our mom, but you and my friends make me feel strong, and I cannot express my gratitude. I will update when I can, but it may be tomorrow, as I am passing that line of tipsy into more than tipsy. But seriously, thank you all so much. Second update. My Venmo popped up, and Heather's sister, Haley, just sent me money. No description on it. Just a bride emoji. Also, Aaron says he is on the way. As I am on Facebook, I am seeing more of the girls in the bridal party in different chats, having issues with Heather. I am more of an Instagram Twitter gal, so I never even saw it. I am messaging them back now. Comments. Alien false flag. It's time for your brother to call off the SHT show. Okay, consideration 1-in-284. I suspect he is. Snoopits 88873. Sophia is the real one. Update. Background info. 1 day later. Star date. The next morning y'all encouraged my nerdy side. Sorry, lol. Happy weekend, everyone. I was shook at how much my notifications blew up more than the Death Star. Bear with me as I sort through everything because it's a lot. And I had a lot of wine last night while stressing. And today I am slightly paying for that. First, some background that came up in the comments. Some of you called it that. But yes, I suffer from an abusive relationship myself. He doesn't even deserve a nerdy fun name, so we will just call him Jeff. Jeff was emotionally and physically harmful to me and encouraged my dieting in my 20s, constantly calling me fat, etc. And that was him being nice. Whenever I tried to leave, he would either intimate me, gaslight me, or both. The short of it is, Aaron finally figured out what was happening as I had gone so low contact with him. And let's just say you wouldn't like Aaron when he's angry. Jeff is so far in my rear view that one would think he's a mirage. Also, I finally watched all the recordings Sophia sent Aaron and me. They are just snippets that she never posted due to lighting, noise, or something being said that she didn't want on the internet. But with Heather somewhere in it, or heard in the background. Not all of it was her hurling insults at me, as some were from outings I could not attend, and she put down others. I mentioned before that Sophia is close to both Aaron and me, that we have sibling-like love for one another, and that Sophia is gay. One video is just Sophia holding her phone down as Heather explains why Sophia's girlfriend can't be at the wedding. You guessed it. Heather checked the homophobe box. She just hit bigot bingo. I am so embarrassed that I ever thought she was my friend. Many other videos were Heather's put-downs to me. Sophia even managed to get the tacky convo from the point, after Heather called me tacky the first time on. There is much more to add. I will give another update on what happened last night. Update. Ding dong, the witch is dead. By the time Aaron got back to my place, I was less tipsy and more wine drunk. He looked at me and said I needed to lay off the celestial absinthe D&D joke. He looked exhausted. I apologized as I felt I had imploded his life, and he snapped at me something like, "Don't you dare apologize for telling me the truth ever," and went on about how hurt he was. I never told him about any of it. I apologized, and he reminded me of Jeff and how bad things could have gone if he hadn't figured out what Jeff was doing to me. I suffered in silence, and things could have escalated, and he could have lost me. I am all he has, and he would never have forgiven me or himself. I told him he was right, and from now on, there will be no lies or secrets between us. He made me pinky swear like we did when we were kids. He then told me what happened. He got to his house and listened to every single one of the recordings. He had sent himself items and screenshots from my phone, including all the payments he could find for what I spent and calculated. He wrote me a check, and the total is staggering. I don't know if everyone is like this, but sometimes it is hard to keep a running tally on a specific expense over time if you just spend a little here and a little there over a year. But let's just say the check will replenish my lost savings, and then some. He then called Heather over under the guise of wanting to have dinner with her. When she arrived, he was sitting in his living room and acting casual. He was recording the whole conversation on his computer nearby, where he teaches tech. So the audio was perfect when he played it back to me, except for when Heather was moving about his house doing things here and there in other rooms as she talked to him. But he stayed on the couch by the desk. He was casual and asked about the wedding planning. She lamented how much there was to do, but how excited she was. He asked about me. How is Francesca doing? I haven't been able to catch up with her. And Heather said something about how she is trying to coach me on being a mo, but that it's fine as she just wants him to be happy and have his adoptive sister in the wedding. Aaron, and I never use the word adoptive. He is simply my brother. Adopted or not. I never knew she used that term when I wasn't around. I can't quite pin it down as to why there's nothing wrong with him being adopted or anything, but it just didn't sit well with me. He kept it chill, asking her questions he already knew answers to, and she clearly would lie to him. He brought up the money, and maybe he should contribute since he does make more, and he doesn't mind. That's when the big lies happened. She claimed to have worked many shifts and saved a lot of money, and to like to pay for her half. Then she blamed me on the super expensive bridesmaid dresses, claiming I made a big deal about not looking my best in the much more affordable dresses she had wanted, etc. But made it out like she compromised by yielding to what I wanted, even though it was more expensive. I am making this really short, but she made me out to be this diva, and would imply how I must talk him into buying me expensive things. And that the bachelorette was going to be her biggest expense, because I am a city girl, and would not stand for a small dinner, which is what Heather wanted. Absolute Wookie poo-poo, but whatever. Aaron toyed around a little longer before saying, "Hey, you should come listen to this," and started playing some of the videos. You can hear Heather saying things like, "Who is that? That sounds like me, but that's not me." But he kept playing them until she just said, "What is this about?" He said he knew the truth, and was giving her the chance to tell him the truth. She pretended she didn't know what he meant, and Aaron just said, "Allow me to be very clear. I know you've been lying to me, so tell me the truth." She started crying and asking why he's doing this to her, and what she did to deserve this, and he got angry. He stated that lying wasn't even the worst thing about how he treated me. His sister and Heather's supposed friend. A lot was said between them, but he never raised his voice, and at one point she was screaming, and he said, "I won't even speak to you if you're just going to yell." They argued more, and he told her to get out and that the wedding was off. He said he expects her to pay me and him back for all the expenses, or he will bring her to court. And then, as she was crying, he called her sister Haley to tell her that Heather is on her way back home, and laid out everything. So Haley knew exactly why they were calling it off. The recording ends there, but according to Aaron, he put Heather's things in her sister's car for her. Yes, I am pedally specific about Heather not owning a car, and locked her out. She stayed at the door, crying for a minute, and left. Aaron says he took a moment to cool down when the drama started back up. Out of all the bridesmaids, only one was singularly Heather's, and not a mutual friend of ours, a friend of mine or Aaron's. Kim hated me at the very beginning because she is Heather's true best friend, and should have been the mo, but made up some crap that I threw a fit. I wasn't important at the wedding, so after long suffering, Heather bent a knee and made me the mo. Kim called Aaron, and yelled at him that Heather was at her house, heartbroken and depressed, because the other girls had lied to him to make her look bad. Heather is willing to forgive him and take him back, but he needs to acknowledge the truth. She said Heather would only get mean to defend herself from us ganging up on her, and that Kim witnessed it firsthand. She told him I was the worst one, and would make snide remarks to Heather about taking my brother away from me, and how now I was alone and had no one. She implied something else that I won't repeat here because it's disgusting, but Luke and Space Mom, if you know, you know. Then she said that Heather is also pregnant, and that the stress cannot be good for her or the baby. Aaron said that he was almost considering talking to Heather and seeing things from her perspective, because he was dumb, and he did think he had loved her. But it was the last parts that snapped him out of it. He said if Heather perceived she was being attacked, he almost felt bad. But he also knew me well enough to know that I am far too non-confrontational. Then wham baby, he told Kim that this was impossible as Heather's rule was no intercourse until marriage, and he respected that. But now Kim and Heather are claiming that he was drunk one night, and he and Heather did the deed and must not remember as he was practically passed out for most of it, which I won't begin to even touch that here. But I have never felt more angry in my life. Aaron doubts this, as he has never been so drunk that he would forget things. And on top of that, Why would she keep it a secret from him after the fact? There is more to it, but those are the cliff notes. It was late, and Sophia couldn't come over, so we FaceTimed her to thank her. She and her girlfriend were eager to hear what happened, and Aaron told the whole thing over again. Sophia's girlfriend, Letty, told Aaron to immediately demand a medical confirmation of pregnancy and a paternity test, as well as have Heather pin down the when and where. She reminded Aaron that he has cameras all over his home and in the main rooms, so this can be easily disproven. But to also tread carefully because she can see a mile away that if Aaron refuses to be conned by that Medusa arse homeworlder wannabe, she will try to spin it, making him an aggressor. She is pre-law, and her dad is an attorney, so Aaron will call him today and speak to Heather only through his attorney going forward. We also opened some of Heather's texts to me together and screenshotted each one. But I was sleepy because of the wine and fell asleep. When I woke up, Aaron was on my tablet, still reading and screenshotting, and he seemed oddly chipper. I asked what's up, and he informed me that Heather's sister Haley reached out, and will be going to the doctor with Heather to see if Heather is really pregnant. But Haley is doubtful as she never mentioned it, nor has Haley noticed any signs. It seems Haley is on his side and over her SHT. He also wants to thank Sophia and the other bridesmaids for helping us, and is thinking about keeping the venue and just having a party in place of the wedding, but he isn't sure. Honestly, I don't think he slept, and he looks awful, so I canceled all my plans and I'm going to make sure he rests and takes care of himself. Nothing has been decided, but he now sees how manipulative Heather can be. I know he is heartbroken, but he's putting on a face for everyone. I know far too well that eventually he will need to mourn the relationship, and I am determined to be here when he does. I think that's everything for now. I wanted to share with everyone who has been so supportive of us, even if it meant kicking me in the pants, to get me to be honest with my brother. To my fellow browncoats and rebels, thanks for helping me feel a part of a broader nerdom. It feels awesome. TLDR. Weddings are off. The Geth was defeated, but she won't let him go. Comments. Datka Malcolm. Diamond. Yeah, this is not over. Aaron, for sure, better lawyer up, etc. Also, if he was blackout drunk, didn't Heather basically admit to saying him if they indeed did the deed that way? Anyway, Heather can F off. Shelly 895. Yes, that would be 100% sa. Heather is really not the smartest gal, admitting to saying someone to justify a fake pregnancy. But I'm willing to bet she's one of those women who thinks men can't be sawed, at least not by women. So she sees nothing wrong with that. Update. Empire strikes back Sith-in-law. TLDR. My brother's ex is finding new ways to make us miserable, and I don't think there is anything to do to stop her right now. Hi everyone. Thanks again for all the supportive comments and messages, and for checking on us. I apologize for not updating, but so much has happened, and to be honest, I have been reeling from one thing to another. Fortunately, not all of it is bad, so I will try to get right into it. There is too much to re-explain, so the link is an easier way to catch anyone up on the situation. I am very blue, so sorry if I am not as quippy as usual. Again, dyslexic, and at the risk of sounding like a functioning alcoholic, yes, I am drinking wine while writing this. At least I am consistent. Let's start with the good stuff first. Letty and Sophia are engaged. It wasn't too long ago, actually, that we were all having drinks together with my brother Aaron, and Sophia had to get up to go to the bathroom. I decided that I would go with her because I also needed to go, but didn't want to break the seal, so we both went, and I found out from Aaron later that Letty had told him that she plans on proposing, and that she's really excited about it as she and Sophia have talked about getting married many times, and they wanted to get married before Letty gets ill. I won't share too much about it, and I honestly don't get or understand it all anyway. But Letty has a high chance of coming down with an illness in her family, and Sophia wants to legally be able to make medical choices, etc. Letty believes it's many years off. Probably well over a decade, but had a cousin come down with it and declined swiftly, far too young, and it spooked them. But Letty wants the proposal and wedding to be magical for Sophia, who didn't leave her immediately upon learning this. TBH, I never knew this before, and I think Letty keeps it close to the vest. My heart broke when I learned about this, but I am hoping that she beats the odds and never falls ill. It's a small possibility, according to Letty, but there is one. The good news is that Letty was focusing on the proposal and living life with her love as long as she was alive. And I think that's so beautiful. Letty waited until Sophia and I went to the bathroom and said to Aaron that she had something she wanted to ask him. She knew that the venue for his now cancelled wedding was not refundable, and that he was trying to figure out what to do with it. And she offered to pay him the money he would lose if he had cancelled the venue to then use the venue for her wedding with Sophia, should Sophia say yes. Aaron was overjoyed by this, and absolutely said yes to that without hesitation. But he refused to have her pay for anything, and said that it would be his wedding gift to them. When he told me about this after Letty and Sophia went home for the night, there was a pep to him. The venue was a sore spot. All the stuff for his wedding was a sore spot. But this was the first time I saw him truly happy about anything connected to it. Letty planned to propose on a Saturday. Sophia grew up with a parent who was a puppeteer who even worked for Jim Henson's company at one point, and she has a great love for live theater, especially if it has puppets in it or movies that have puppets in them. She even has some of her own puppets, but she always says that she's no puppeteer, she just loves them. Letty has commissioned 2 puppets that look like Letty and Sophia as a gift. She took Sophia to a showing of The Labyrinth with Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie, which is one of Sophia's childhood favorites. Letty prompted them to go for a walk at the park nearby, where they used to hang out when they first started dating. Aaron and I, along with a couple other friends, had set up something of a scavenger hunt, using details of their love story together that led to the riverside, where they had their first kiss. Letty proposed, and it was beautiful. Sophia managed to choke a yes out through her tears. Aaron is glad the money for the venue will be used for something good. And my sapphic arse loves to see two close gal pals of mine living such a romantic life successfully. Aaron told me privately that he will also use all of the vendors that he hasn't cancelled yet that were meant for his wedding, and see if he can retain them for the girl's wedding as well. He will talk with the girls about it once they are ready to start planning. He was so happy, his eyes were watering. He seemed really happy, to be honest. Even when I wrote down that I knew that he would need to mourn his relationship, and everything that's happened to him. I had no idea how hard it would be to see him suffer. He put on a brave face for a while, and then one day I went to visit him because I had offered to make him dinner. And he was very quiet over text and hadn't replied, which isn't like him. This was maybe a week or two after my last post. I went over anyway with all of the groceries, just assuming that he got caught up as he had thrown himself a lot into work, and often got a little carried away. I would usually get a quick text by the end of the workday like, "Oh hey, sorry, got caught up with work," etc. And we would resume plans, but this day I didn't get it. When I got to his house, he was drunk, and I mean drunk. I had never seen him this gone before. What I was able to piece together from his ramblings was that it all finally hit him, and he felt used, stupid, and a failure. Not just because of Heather, and that whole situation, but because of what I went through, and the fact that he couldn't protect his own sister. He was crying and told me I was all he had. He had failed me, and he would never forgive himself. There's a bunch more to it, but that was the crux. I would like to think I am not a hateful person. We were not raised to hate. We were raised to rise above such things. Hurt people, and we should spread love. But when I tell you that seeing my brother, my lifelong best friend, the person never not in my corner, breaking down like that so broken over Heather's actions, I truly felt this creeping feeling therapy sussed out for me that was deep, festering, unadulterated hate. She hurt me. Okay, I found that I am much tougher than I thought. But where the line is, where my rage came in, where this awful, deep pit of fire that makes me scared of my own feelings comes in, is that she broke my brother's heart. There is a very ugly side of me that wants to make her feel like he is hurting. I am not proud of that at all. In fact, I am ashamed of it. But I would be a lying cesspool if I said I didn't. I got him cleaned up, and he slept while I cooked. He didn't eat much and didn't sober up until the next day. He remembered everything, and was incredibly embarrassed, red in the face from it, and said he hated that I had to see him like that, and it wasn't fair to me. This is coming from the guy who picked me up the first time I got SHT-faced at a public bar when I was a teenager. He apologized the second he woke that day, saying he had whiskey to unwind as he felt tense and upset, and the next thing he knew, he was looking through photos of his time with Heather and just lost it. I assured him it was all right. This wasn't his fault, and I was here for him. He shut down a bit, withdrew for a while after that incident, and left all his booze at my place as he wanted to sober up and go to therapy, which I was grateful for. I am also going to therapy, FYI, as it was suggested a lot in the comments. Now, I'm sure everyone is wondering about Heather. God, Heather is a fake name, but I still hate typing it. Her sister Haley tried to force Heather to go to a doctor's appointment to confirm the so-called pregnancy. Heather agreed until Haley wanted to be told the results by the doctor and not relayed by Heather. Heather immediately refused, color me shocked. Haley then told her sister that it was either this option or for Heather to pack her crap and leave her home. I am told that's when Heather folded. They went, and the crazy bit is that while Heather was not pregnant, she was. I don't know how Haley came to find this out, but she called Aaron to tell him that Heather had an abortion in December. Heather, at the time, had told Aaron she was going traveling with some friends for a week or so. Kim had taken her. Aaron was shook up by this, and really started to question whether he could have been the father. But the only way that could be true is that Heather and Kim were telling the truth about Heather getting him so drunk and into bed. He kept saying that he really doesn't think that it is true, but if she was pregnant. It really messed him up. He got tested for STDs, and a few weeks later he was cleared of all that worry, but he hadn't quite been right since. He would be a bit short-tempered, not explosively, just curt and angry or annoyed by little things. For example, and to share some news, I have a boyfriend now. We will call him Han because, why not? Han is super handsome and sweet, and he has been an acquaintance through my theater circles for a long time. We both joined the same D&D group or campaign about 5 months ago, and usually the group plays weekly. Han always made me smile and laugh. Our characters are exes in the campaign storyline, and the banter is hilarious role-playing. When the Heather stuff started ramping up, he asked if I was alright. I didn't share back then, but he kept making efforts to make me smile. And one day I finally shared, and he didn't interrupt. Just listened. He jokes a lot like I do, to deflect or dispel discomfort, but he was deadly serious as he listened to me. He was super sweet and took me to drinks after D&D that week, and we got to chatting. It was nice to just chat away and lose myself in just existing with a person. We ended up kissing at my car after he walked me out, and we went on a full-fledged date the next day. I won't bore you with the details, but I really enjoyed the date. And I was all smiles when I went home, as Aaron was coming by for dinner along with a mutual friend who had canceled at the last minute. Aaron noticed my mood and grinned at me like that TikTok background. Dang bro, who got you smiling like that? Lol, and I told him everything. I was giddy, but I could see Aaron getting quiet, and his face went from playful to serious. He was so intense that I stopped talking and asked what was wrong, and he shook his head and said nothing. I just said, "Come on, don't be like that. I know it's nothing." And he snapped at me and said, "I said it's nothing." And I just clamped my mouth shut, nodded, and quietly went to check on the food in the kitchen. A couple minutes later, he came into the kitchen and looked really miserable. He apologized for being an arse, that he's not mad at me, that I deserve to be happy, that this is his problem, not mine, and that he just panicked and freaked out because he didn't know Han. He thought it was a buddy of his who has a crush on me unbeknownst to me, and felt this horrible fear that he would break my heart. He said he's been working on it, working on himself, but the whole situation with Heather has him effed up 5 ways to Sunday, and it wasn't fair of him to take it out on me. Little moments like that cropped up 2 or 3 times. Then he just went stoic. Quiet. Really not himself. Then the incident happened. I work at a local theater in the city that our town surrounds. My schedule is a little bit untraditional, but pretty easy to figure out. Essentially, if a certain event is happening at my job, I am definitely going to be there, unless I am sick or on vacation. This particular event that happened that night was really something I was looking forward to, because it had a lot of performances that I wanted to see. So, I invited Han as we were newly using the labels of boyfriend and girlfriend. He asked on Valentine's Day. So yeah, it's really new, but also really fast. I was really excited to take him to an event at my job, as my boyfriend for the first time. I was with a group of donors when my second in command, and yes, I call her number 1, and if you get the reference, we can be friends who I will call Willa F20s came to me, and said my cousin was there, and it was an emergency. I know I said that my brother is my family, and that's true. We're each other's only real family, but Aaron and I do have cousins, but we haven't really spoken to them outside of the occasional text here or there, or maybe Facebook comments, etc. Most of them cut all contact with me after I came out of the closet, and thus Aaron did the same with them. But we have 2 grandfathers. One is technically a step-parent, but whatever, and both are older and in ailing health. So I assumed that the emergency was about one of them, and I rushed to my office, where Willa said my cousin was. When I walked into my office, it was not a cousin or any family member for that matter. It was Kim. She had changed her hair, and she had lost a little bit of weight. She did look really different, but it was definitely her. I can't explain the feeling I had when I saw her. I mean, effing hell, she had made life a living hell for me and my brother. I was shocked and angry to see her, and I told Willa who she was. Willa had heard a shortened version of everything that had been happening, because I had to take some time off to take care of Aaron and myself, to make sure that we both were getting the help that we needed through therapy and getting medical tests done, etc. So I relied a lot on Willow to have the bridge while I was not in office. I asked Kim what she was doing there and why she had come. But before I could say anything, Kim hugged me. Hugged me. I was like, what the actual F? Then she glared at Willa and said something like, "We need privacy." And Willa refused. So Kim said to get the F out. And Willa is just cool, as it can be said. Francesca is my boss. You are not. I don't take orders from you. She's a badass. Anyway, I had broken from Kim's hug like, "What are you doing? Get out. This is my job," etc. And Kim waved it off, saying, and I truly quote, yeah, blah blah, we hate each other, I get it," and continued to say something like she isn't there because she wants to be. But Heather knew I would likely call the cops if she came herself, probably true, because I hated her guts, definitely true, and wanted her no comment. I am kidding, even though I am not there yet. She said that Heather got kicked out of Haley's, and is staying at Kim's, and she hasn't been eating or sleeping, but she is drinking a lot and spiraling bad. She wants me to ask Aaron to please meet her, so they can talk. Kim said and that Aaron is probably the only person who can save her from this ledge. Guys, I am not proud of this, but something in me just snapped. I laughed. Hysterically. I mean, it was so absurd. This absolute horror show of a woman chewed my brother up and spat him out. Possibly allegedly assaulted him or cheated on him because she somehow got pregnant, and broke my brother's heart to the point that he's hardly keeping it together. And she wanted me, the woman she went out of her way to make miserable and push away, to kindly pass along anything from her to him other than, Heather said she's sorry, she's a piece of Wookie poo, and will never bother us again. Excuse the F out of me. So yeah, I laughed in Kim's face. It might have been cruel, but in the moment, it was honestly the kindest thing I could do, because I wanted to act like a complete fool, cuss her out, cuss Heather out, and tell her just what I thought about her. Again, I am not proud of it. I don't want to be hateful. I don't think it's my nature, and it's not how I was raised. I keep lamenting how my mother would be so ashamed of that ink blot in my heart. But I have no good things to think about or say about either of those twisted crap piles. I laughed and told Kim to get the F out, or we would call security. I turned to Willa to ask her to make sure Kim left the premises. Here's what all happened after, as told to me, because I don't remember it all fully. There is a brick on my desk that is from the original building that was our theater before the new buildings were built. All employees from that era got one. Kim grabbed it, and I do remember the whack, the sound of it, and nothing else. I don't know guidelines, so I won't go into too much detail, but Willa knows how to hold her own and took Kim to the ground, shouting for help. 911 was called. I woke up on a stretcher in an ambulance, and they took me to the hospital. Han was with me. The cops took Kim. It didn't matter if I wanted to press charges in the respect that Kim tried for Willa too. And Willa is pressing all the charges she can. And there are cameras at my job, so proving it wasn't hard. I managed to stay at least partially awake most of the time. I had a concussion, but was going to be fine. They wanted to keep me overnight, but I started to protest, saying I would sign anything they needed to release me to go home. I don't think I mentioned this before, but I have a huge phobia of hospitals. It's due to trauma as a kid. Han had already called Aaron, and when I started protesting being kept at the hospital, I noticed Han was on the phone, and he was quietly relaying, "She is saying she won't stay okay," and the like. It takes forever to get discharged for whatever reason, so Aaron arrived at the hospital before the paperwork was even sent. He came in like a man on fire. He didn't yell, but he was scarily firm. "You are staying here as long as the doctor says you need to, etc." I admit, I was pissed and in pain, and frankly, a BTCH. I told him he's not our dad, that I am grown, and he can FCK off. We argued. It was bad. We both said stuff we regretted after. Han tried to defuse it, but at one point we both said, damn near simultaneously, "Shut up, Han," and he did. I swear to God, it was like a bad movie. Aaron and I went from anger to tears, crying as we traded jabs until we just wore ourselves down. He just slumped in the chair by my bed opposite Han, and I stared at that stupid white ceiling, hating everything. Aaron just muttered, "I love you, you stubborn arse," and I kind of laughed and muttered something like, "I love you too, you jackarse," and we just laughed until I fell asleep. So I ended up staying overnight anyway. I was released late the next day. The doctor wanted me to either stay there or go with Han or Aaron. Han offered, but Aaron snapped at him and said I would stay at his, and I was frankly too tired to argue. I hadn't looked at my phone since the incident until I settled in Aaron's guest room. Han said he reached out to Sophia and Letty, a few other friends, and to my boss at work, updating her, but no one else. I had messages galore. It felt like everyone heard. But I saw a message from Heather. It was a video. She was smiling and said, "I heard you take a tumble. Get well soon, my love," and she blew a kiss. Han was with me, and I could see he was livid. I begged him not to say anything to Aaron as it would upset him further, and there was no point in that, which was true, but also, given the state he'd been in, I was also worried he would snap and do something supremely stupid. I fell asleep soon after that. I woke up to shouting lots of it and heard Aaron raging. I knew what was happening before I even got to the living room. Han and Aaron had been talking, splitting duties between taking care of me, cooking, alerting everyone, etc. And Aaron had taken my phone to get my boss's number and saw Heather's message. He now thinks she planned it all, which sounded insane even for her. But a large bump on my head says anything is possible. He called the police. Kim is still in custody. A trial will need to happen. I am no lawyer, but apparently she has to stay there for a while, thank God. Aaron asked about a restraining order against Kim. The police said it would likely be no trouble to get one, given the circumstances. The issue is Heather. Put simply, we have no proof. The video she sent is no admission of guilt. Kim is saying she is protecting Heather from Aaron. She told the cops that Aaron is violent, cruel, and abusive. She said Aaron forced Heather's abortion, that he would put her down, and that he did vile things my brother would never do in a million years. They said they are investigating these allegations, and will be available as soon as they do so. We will hear from detectives. It's a nightmare. Today, I am pretty much recovered and already back at home. But Aaron, Han, and all my friends want me to not be home. I got a get well card signed by an H in the mail. It had no postage, leaving us to assume whoever dropped it off came to my home. Because I am a trusting idiot, I left my back door open. Most in my inner circle know I do that regularly, I know. And when I got home, I noticed the house was off. I still, to this day, cannot tell you what it is, and I could be paranoid. But I think someone was in my home. I told my inner circle. And now Han is camped on my couch, and Aaron is nagging me to come back to his, until we can get my locks checked, cameras on the property, and sort out this whole thing. That was sincerely as short as I could make it. And there is still a lot happening now. I don't know what would be worse, stay with Aaron until we get on each other's nerves, and have another blowout fight. Keep poor Han on my couch until his back gives out and Aaron gets a million new gray hairs. All I know is that either way, I won't be sleeping well, if at all. Kim is not a threat currently, but Heather knows where both Aaron and I live. I am unsure if she is crazy or stupid enough to come at either of us directly, or if she even told Kim to do what she did or not. First update. Someone put cameras in my home. Han found at least 2. I am saying this with friends until the police sweep my house tomorrow. Update. I am exhausted, so I will try to keep this pithy. I was right about something feeling wrong in the house. Han found 2 cameras hidden in charger blocks plugged into my kitchen, which is usually the most active room in my home. For reference, I have a pretty open floor plan, and the kitchen can see most of the home outside the living room. Only for a weird wall being there, I never understood why it was built that way. But like I said, cheap fixer-upper to buy, so I can't really complain. I was doomed to scroll through Facebook and catch up on a year's worth of comments and messages when Han came into my bedroom and told me to pack a bag. He seemed super tense. I tried to ask what was going on, but he was having none of it. Han is never bossy or curt like that, so I just did what he asked, and we went outside. I went to my car, and he told me to get in, so I did. He drove me to Aaron's at first. Han told me and Aaron that he was fixing himself a snack when a breaker went out, and he used his cell flashlight to see so he could go to the garage and flip the breaker back. But he noticed a reflection in a charger. He took a closer look and found a camera. It was no hard work to find the second, also in the kitchen on the other side. He knew I had no cameras in the house yet, and immediately went to grab me and get me out of the house. I lost the contents of my stomach right away after hearing that. That's my home. My safe space. I dance in my underwear, I make personal phone calls and FaceTime. and I make out with my boyfriend there. I have no way of knowing how long it was there or who was watching. I mean, I can make a guess to both clearly, but I don't know. The police were called again. They were and are in and out of my home, rummaging through my things. I know it's their job, but it feels like a second violation to have more people in my home. I can't sleep, and I can't cry. I just feel numb and empty. I am staying in the guest room of a friend. I can't say just for security reasons, and all doors and windows are locked. The boys searched Erin's house up and down for cameras, and an officer is also coming to check. I just want to disappear into a hole forever, but if my suspicions are right, that's what they'd want. Another development is that Erin found my post. Apparently, it was used on a video on a Facebook or YouTube page or something that he follows, and the details of the original post plus my updates left little room for doubt. He was very dissatisfied with it, and I thought it would be yet another argument when he brought it up, and I had just given up, saying I would take it down. But he said it was fine so long as I used fake names, etc., and didn't post who I was with or where I was staying, specifically just in case. Han said an officer let him know I should have a restraining order on Kim by the end of the week. But again, I need proof against Heather. It's frustrating. I know I am safe logically, but I haven't been able to sleep or keep food down. The friends I am staying with have all the security one can ask for and can easily defend me or their home, but my mind is racing. This all got out of control, and all because I ruined my brother's relationship. Han is staying in the bedroom with me because I don't want to be alone. The sweetheart has taken off work for the next few days to be with me. Erin has told me not to worry, and that he has an idea, but won't say what it is. All I can do right now is wait, cry, and hope I cry enough to exhaust myself enough to sleep. Update. I wanted to share a bit more as a few things have happened. And this has sort of become my diary of sorts, helping me process everything. I want to thank everyone who has been supportive and has sent kind messages, and I apologize for the lack of response. I honestly just get overwhelmed and never know what to say, but I appreciate the kindness. As for those who choose to be unkind, send me abusive and rude messages, or believe this is all fake, I truly hope none of this happens to you, because you may find this only entertaining. But this has been my life for months. I am in twice weekly therapy now because of it. My health has been impacted in more ways than one, and I haven't been to work in ages. I miss my life, and it's a living nightmare, but thankfully, there may be an end in sight. Now onto the bits I'm sure you're more interested in. I can now sort of share where I've been, and I have to give some background. Erin didn't want me to say where I was, even with fake names, in case Heather or anyone on her side found my post as he did. But I was staying at my friend Zara's fake name F34 apartment. Zara and I know each other well. We worked at my job until she quit a few years ago to run her own business, and we were two of the few women in positions of leadership, and the only two black people in the whole company. She also plays D&D with me and some friends. She also has a software engineering certification, so she talks tech with Erin. Zara lives alone with a dog, and she took the couch in front of the house, so I could sleep in the bedroom. I told her she didn't have to, but she insisted. I hadn't told her everything that had happened until I called after the cameras and explained everything. Zara has always been protective, and Erin knows that, so he came, and we sat her down and explained everything from the beginning. Zara worked at my job, but now owns her own business, which means she works remotely and her time is flexible. I should mention that, to be honest, she and Erin hit it off when they met, and they became very close and often hung out with friends. I consider her my friend, of course, but she's like Sophia in that I share her with Erin as a friend, and there are times I feel they team up against me. Not maliciously, just that they tend to agree often. Like Wash and Zoe, if you get the reference. Zara listened without interrupting, and then she just stood up, turned on her home security system. She has a Ring camera that's always on and cameras on the apartment for when she has actors visiting from out of town, and got fresh sheets for the bed. Erin didn't say anything. He just watched her as if he knew what she was doing. Or maybe they talked before I asked, but I was like, wait, what's going on? Zara simply said, you're staying here. I've got a gun, a dog, and a bone to pick with anyone doing this to you. So you're staying here until you have a safe place to go. I argued, but Han stopped me. Zara and Erin are chatting about it, like I wasn't there, and I was fuming, but there wasn't much I could do. I was exhausted. I had only been awake for maybe a few hours at that point, and honestly, everything felt heavy on me. Zara was a safe bet anyway. She seems harmless because she is one of the nicest and most accommodating people I know. She's my height and smaller than me. I wear maybe a medium. She's still wearing smalls. That said, a quick story. Once at a bar, a man who was a Def Jam rat guy would not release her arm when he was hitting on her. She said, if you don't let me go, I have to hurt you. Please let me go. I don't want to hurt you. And the guy laughed and yanked her arm, and she somehow moved him in front of her and slammed his head into the bar so hard that he stumbled down, and she pulled the group of girls we were with to the bouncer. Zara's birth mother was a Marine. Her other mother was in the Air Force. She's a military brat and has been taught to defend herself since she was young. It's funny because she honestly has the warmest personality in any room, but she is like the one-punch man of our friends. I was a wreck, so Han stayed too. Erin only chatted with Zara a while before leaving, and I stayed at Zara's for a few days. It was actually really nice. She would make breakfast every morning and have me walk with her when she walked her dog in the morning, midday, and before dinner. She would cook most meals, and for dinner, we would drink wine or beer and laugh like we used to. She would play video games with Han. She has every console I can think of, and Han was in heaven. I forgot how much I love Zara, and how much she reminds me of my mom. She's lively, sweet, and laughs big like an auntie does. She's a great listener, and even though she doesn't have children, she is seriously one of the most maternal people I know, always willing to do anything for her friends. We're not far apart in age, but she feels like a big sister. Anyway, during that time I went to my therapy appointments virtually and had a physical checkup in person as I was still losing weight. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but it's been an issue for about a month. Zara said it wouldn't be an issue for long and laughed. She would play her guitar at night, and I got used to falling asleep to it. And then the other night she was playing but quieter, and I heard her speaking to someone. Han was in the sleeping bag in the room beside the bed, and Zara lives alone, so I went out. It was the cops. Zara saw me, and the first thing she told me was that, "It's alright, Aaron is okay." Here is what I didn't know. Aaron had told me he had an idea, but didn't say what it was. Apparently, Heather and Aaron seemed to have a great relationship with one issue: Zara. Heather hated Zara and tried to rattle her, but Zara worked as an educator for years, recognized the behavior, and even told Aaron about it. At the time, Aaron waved it off, asking Zara to please try to get along with Heather as a favor to him. He just thought, the girls sometimes squabble, until everything happened. Zara long knew Heather felt threatened by how close she was to Aaron, so she and Aaron went on social media that night and faked a relationship. They uploaded photos, swapped posts, etc. I had no idea they were doing this. At first, they thought it wasn't working. Heather never contacted either of them, and I have her blocked. So Aaron posted something about making dinner for his love, and tagged Zara, and Heather showed up at his house. I don't know all that happened, but she's on his camera, trying to punch him and push him into his house. She broke the window next to his front door and threw the potted plants at him. Aaron went inside and called the police, but Heather had left. The cops were at Zara's to talk to both her and me about the ongoing issues with Heather. We shared the same information. Zara added about Heather being jealous of her friendship with Aaron new to me at the time, and they left. When Zara shut the door, she looked at me with a grand smile and said nothing. She just sat on the couch with her glass of wine. I was like, "What just happened?" And Zara said, "Come and sit with me, have some wine." Heather had left Aaron's house before the cops came, and police were looking for her. Aaron was pressing charges. He had scratches on him, and a bruise where she threw a potted plant at him, and hit him in the shoulder. I called him, and he says he is fine. He sounded almost happy. I know he was going for assault, and for the damage done to his property. He is going for a weapon charge as well because she threw things at him, and that may be considered a blunt instrument. I don't know the details. I don't really wish to know them either. I just want to know when she will be arrested. I heard that the same night, she went to her sister's house Haley, where she had been living, but Aaron had texted her. Haley had had enough, and was putting Heather's stuff out front. It wasn't much, so it didn't take long, but Heather pitched a fit. Since the car Heather is using is Haley's, she was told she could not use it anymore. Haley asked for her keys back, and Heather slapped her. Haley's husband witnessed this, and took the car. So she has now added another assault and theft to the charges, as Haley is pressing charges too, with Ring doorbell camera footage to back her up. As for me, they cleared my home, and apparently I can trace the cameras back somehow. Aaron explained it to me, but to be honest, all I heard was that there was a chance they could find someone to put the cameras in. I was hesitant to go home, but Zara offered to let me stay until Heather is arrested since Heather never went to her home and doesn't know where she lives, and then Zara will stay with me since she mostly works remotely for her business to help me get the house back in order. And she has a Rottweiler who loves me, named Xena. She's a sweet dog, but looks ferocious from afar. Zara and Aaron want me to stay with her for now because she has booked a place to retreat to for some of spring break, while she rents her apartment room to travelers. The city she lives in is intensely popular during holidays, and now I will be staying with Zara and Xena. I have been able to sleep through the night. So Han is going to my house to get a head start on changing the locks, etc. He is also installing home security. Aaron got me. So I am writing this from a lovely rented vacation home with a pool in the back and a loving dog on my lap. Zara is working inside, and there is Motown music playing loudly through all the windows. She doesn't think I know, but she is planning a dinner Friday with my friends to cheer me up. I overheard her on the phone when she thought I was asleep. Everyone is sure Heather will be found by the weekend. Aaron thinks Kim will flip on Heather pretty quickly because in the recording of her coming after him, he said something like, "Oh, so you came yourself this time? Since Kim can't fight for you." And Heather said something to the effect that she only told Kim to go after me because Kim is dumb enough to do it, but not smart enough to prove Heather asked her to. I don't know the exact quote, but Aaron is damn near giddy he has the recording, and he seems sure Kim, once she sees it, will sing like a bird. Also, since Heather made threats against me, Aaron, Han, Zara, Sophia, and Letty in her tirades online, and on the video evidence, we likely have enough for restraining orders. It isn't perfect, but it's a start. Zara's birthday is later this month, and she has invited me and our friends to celebrate with her. I know she is trying to take my mind off Heather and this crap show, but I don't mind. She's a good friend. I still have nightmares and panic attacks, but it's easy to talk to Zara when they happen. She is certified to handle these things within reason through her former job, and so she has been wonderful to me. I stopped worrying that I was being too dramatic, too much, or simply asking too much of her. She's waved off those concerns with a laugh and a hug. She says she loves having the company and enjoys our talks. I guess I will update when Heather is arrested, but I am excited for the first time in a while. It's quiet here, and Xena is great company as I sit and enjoy the perfect weather. Side note. Zara read this before I posted, laughed, and got mad that I did not name her Zelda. She said I wasted an opportunity there. Update. I was just diagnosed and am still reeling. How do I even begin? I feel a little silly asking, as I've known and do know people who struggle with depression and never figured I would be diagnosed with it myself. I can honestly blame a lot of it on things happening in my life, but not on not having people to talk to. I went to the doctor to get checked up on an injury I sustained not long ago. I am all clear, by the way. But my boyfriend and brother left the room, and my doctor lingered, and she asked me a bunch of other questions. I've had this doctor for a while now, and I usually am pretty open with her, but I have definitely had a rough 4 or 5 months, and she's been my doctor for most of it. After our talk, she said that it sounds like I am depressed, and she would like to start me on medication. I am already in therapy twice a week for several weeks, going forward due to ongoing issues at the behest of my therapist and close friends and family. Therapy has been great, and I actually started feeling more like myself for the first time in a long time. But now depression. It just feels hurtful somehow, like I took 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. Am I overthinking this? Even now I am helping plan a surprise birthday party for a dear friend, and helping plan the wedding of 2 of my best friends, and things have been looking up. I feel like I have no excuse to feel this way, and I haven't mentioned it to my boyfriend, friends, or family. How do I even begin to tackle this? I hate taking medication on my best days. I know it's childish, but any advice would be helpful. Update. Orange is the new Sith. This will be a short update. Sorry if the title feels misleading, but someone got on me about not titling, so here it is. Heather is not in custody, to be clear, but there is a warrant out for her arrest. Not sure for what, but Aaron said that she committed a few crimes recently, and if found around these parts, she will be in cuffs so fast her head will spin. As far as we know, she still has Haley's car illegally as well. Last night, she texted me from a random number I don't know. And here is the text: I changed my name to the fake name, and certain details for privacy. Francesca, I don't know what I ever did to make you hate so much to take my complete and utter life from me. But then again, I don't think I ever knew you. I spent countless hours trying to pinpoint when we went from friends to enemies. But the only conclusion I can draw is that we were never friends to begin with. Aaron was, and is the love of my life. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him, but his betrayal is damn near unforgivable. I guess you win. He chose you over me and his child. Are you happy I killed my own child, your niece or nephew, because your brother was afraid of how you would react? How does it feel to be responsible for the snuffing out of an innocent life? I have named our angel, and their name is whispered in my prayers. You don't have to tell everyone you're afraid of me. I have left our town and won't be returning. You took everything from me, and I have nothing left. I would hate you, but I can't. I feel sorry for you. You never knew true love, so you clung to your brother for affection. If you feel sorry, or are not able to stand on your own, to call your own shots, or to be yourself without the self-loathing that brought you to these actions, I pray you and Aaron are not as decent with one another as I am told. Framing me for the cameras was a nice touch. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I have never had any interest in your lonely life, in that broken down home by yourself. Your boyfriend doesn't love you. I can tell. Sadly, you can't. The second you put it out, he will throw you away like a toy. When he does, remember me. How you treated me. You could have had a sister who loved you, but you chose this. You chose to make me do all of this. Now you chose to abandon me to nights without meals, a roof, or a shower. You've chosen to force me into selling all I own for gas. You forced me to sleep in my car in unsafe places. And possibly, if anything happens, you've chosen a horrible end for me at the hands of strangers. Are you happy? I won't reach out again. It hurts too much to even think of how you rejected me so completely and ruined my life. I never expected you to be this jealous and vindictive, but I guess I never knew you. May God bless you, and may his love bring you to repentance. May we meet in heaven someday. Heather. Of course, I took screenshots and told the police. I haven't told anyone else. I have been keeping busy with preparing for Zara's birthday party, and I am literally just sitting at the restaurant all dressed up, waiting for everyone else to arrive. Aaron is picking Zara up and bringing her here under the guise of a thank you dinner, just the 2 of them, where they can also discuss what to do about the situation. I'm tired. Not the physical kind. I've never felt more relaxed physically, but my brain is tired. Sleep does nothing for me. I wake up feeling overwhelmed and wanting to sleep more. I go to bed hoping I will fall asleep soon, but I don't dream. When I dream, it's usually a nightmare, and I feel awful for Heather. I can't imagine being alone, truly alone on the road, living in my car, afraid for my safety every night. She feels betrayed. I know she's talking about most, if not all, of the text, but I still feel badly for her. I know, call me stupid or whatever. I have and will block super mean commenters and messages for my own mental health. Quick note. Whether you agree with me or believe me or not, calling me pathetic and telling me to do awful things to myself says far more about you than me. So here I am. I am hoping to put on my face, hand Zara her birthday sash and crown, have the best damn night ever, and forget this mess. I won't mention this to any of them, at least not tonight. Tonight is for birthdays and Joy and Sophia and Letty's engagement, and Aaron has a new job. And Han and I are good. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I should be happy. So I will try to be. Update. Revenge of the Sith. For the record, Zara suggested the title. Well, I can't say I expected to update so soon and not like this. But buckle up, because it's not going to be a vacation on Tatooine. I won't say that I will try to keep this brief. It's never brief. I am wordy and nerdy, and I won't change that right now. To be honest, as I've mentioned, this is more my diary or journal and a coping mechanism, so I will stick to my writing style. But I will try to stay on task to avoid confusion. A very quick aside to answer a question I got in the comments and messages. So sorry I didn't mention before, but Zara's birthday party was great. My brother had invited her under the guise of taking her dinner to thank her for all her help and for being a solid friend to us. He told her it was a nice place, so she could dress up if she wanted. She did, and she looked stunning in a lovely red dress, heels, and makeup, the whole nine. We all shouted surprise, and she froze in shock and burst into tears. We didn't know this, but her life had been lonely, and the little family she had basically disowned her, and she felt alone and lovable, which is incredible because she is one of the most lovable individuals I have ever known. Anyway, we drank and sang happy birthday, and she ate seafood, her favorite, to her heart's content. We all pitched in to cover her bill, and we were together, then hit a bar after. When I say I paid for the tequila the next day, all that to say, I will try to pick up where I left off. After Heather's text, I felt awful. I barely had energy for anything, and I guess that's the depression kicking my buttocks. I have an appointment tomorrow because Zara insisted. She said she isn't trying to judge me and won't go to Aaron about it yet, but she is concerned about me and wants me to be healthy and have all the tools needed to feel myself again. I know it's not fair to her, but I was annoyed but relented, so there's that. I really appreciate all the reassurances y'all gave me, and you were right. I am easily gaslit, and I shouldn't let Heather get to me, especially knowing what I know now. Heather was not out of town. She was at Kim's sister's, who turned her in after they fell out, apparently, but Heather had left before the police arrived. I don't know where she is now, but knowing she could very well be in town just unnerves me. I know it may sound awful, but I don't feel safe. It's stressful, and I am clinging to whoever is with me like glue. I take Zara's dog with me everywhere, and I can't stand to be alone. In hindsight, that and my constant nightmares probably prompted Zara to ask me to seek help with my depression. Han is with us, and we have returned to my home. Zara is staying with me for a while. This morning, I got a call from my boss, the director of the overall department, whom I will call Nathan. He basically said I have to come back to work. I mentioned I was applying for FMLA, and he actually laughed and said, FMLA is not for family drama, but for emergencies. He says if I don't start returning to work by April, he will be forced to reassess my position. I asked if number 1, my second in command, was not handling things well, and he said, she is. In fact, she can run the programs without you, it seems, which may be a reason I need to reassess if you are needed. You can imagine with these budget cuts why I might be more inclined to reward her hard work, which felt like a veiled way of saying he can and will easily fire me, and they will only be positively affected. I have been a wreck all day about it, especially since Heather knows where I work, as she once worked there too. Nathan is fully aware of the situation, as the police have had to speak to him about Heather since he is director. I don't want to go back to campus until I know it's safe, but I can't lose my job. Zara has offered to bring her laptop to the coffee shop nearby, but I can't ask her to do that after she's done so much for me already. When I refused, I did my best to make it seem like I was fine, that it wasn't real trouble, and that I was just annoyed by Nathan being a nerf-hurting Jabba, because she knows he's always been a jerk to me anyway. She took me out shopping, and we got pepper spray and a taser. She wanted to buy me a gun, and I live in a place where guns are prevalent, but I never liked the things, and while I do know how to fire one, I don't think I want one. Han has insisted on being my ride to and from work, as he does have one, and he doesn't like the fact that security is easy to get past at my job. He's also actively sending me job listings. He thinks I should apply to that, even pay better, because he doesn't want me at that job anymore. My job is niche, and all the jobs he sent are out of my reach, so I let him know that's not feasible, and we actually had a weird sort of argument, which didn't help things for either of us. Zara diffused it by changing the subject to what we wanted to eat for dinner, and we seemed to have moved on but ate in silence. I went to my room to cry and fell asleep. As I am writing this now though, he has been sulking in the living room, and I have been trying to figure out how best to apologize. But I want to do it with a clear head, so I will probably wait until morning. It's super late at night, and he will probably go to sleep soon. This all just feels like an endless loop of stress and frustration. I am thankful for the community here, so I can vent, as I feel like I am wearing on the others. And even Aaron has been scarce lately, though he said it was just juggling his job, the court cases, the wedding planning for our friends, and his own therapy. I am sitting in my room in my home, with my bestie down the hall in the guest room, and my boyfriend on my couch. I mean, I am surrounded by loved ones, but I feel more alone than ever. But as I am sure many of you will be delighted to hear, I still have Zara's sweet doggo with me, who cuddles when I cry and seems to really like being around me. Dog therapy is doing wonders. I know this isn't much of an update. I think I just needed to vent. Update. Natural one. I will always title, because we played last night, and it's on the brain. And yes, I will always title from now on. This is a stupid update. Yes, it will be long, not sorry, and also to anyone concerned, I share too much given the circumstances. I have already said I use fake names and change details for privacy. Also, I apologize to Han for his favorite breakfast, the next day after my last post. He said he was sorry too, and that he was tense about the situation as a whole. I told him I applied to some of the jobs he suggested, and asked if he could take a look at my resume, and he happily said yes. I told him I appreciated it, and really appreciated all he had been doing for me. Our relationship is fairly new, and not everyone would step up the way he has. I told him how much it means to me that he is willing to do all he does, even or especially since he doesn't have to by any stretch of the imagination. He waved it off a bit, saying something like, "You know me, I am a ride or die," and laughed. But I held his gaze and told him I meant it, and he smiled and said he was happy to hear it. Thankfully, we are all good now. But I did send him home to rest, which maybe was my mistake. But he needed to relax and sleep in a bed, not my couch, and really take time for himself. He hesitated, but I knew he knew I was right, so he went to spend the weekend at home. Now onto this absolutely crapslide of a week. Zara's actual birthday passed, and she was sad because, out of her family, only her mom texted her just a text, that's it. Happy birthday, and she was low. I called Aaron and suggested we do something, and he suggested a nerdathon, which is something he and I coined. It's basically a weekend where we do nerdy crap unashamedly, as if it were our jobs. In this instance, since it was Operation Cheer Up Zara, it was stuff she liked. We started with watching Dune 2 Man. That movie is long, lol with her. Aaron just showed up at the house, and Zara got the door and just looked at him, and he grinned and said, "Get in, loser, we're going nerding," and Zara was like, "What?" But I already had her coat, so we went. We took her to dinner at this place that is like a Ren Fair with 3-course meals. Think of it like that famous place, Medieval Times in Baltimore, but owned by absolute geeks we all dressed up before. Aaron was an ogre, I was an elf, and Zara was a cleric. We then stayed for a one-off D&D session. Zara and I drank since Aaron was driving mistake number 2. We get back to his place to watch Serenity the Firefly movie, and there's a man at the door. Aaron told us to stay in the car. I told him the guy looked familiar, but I couldn't place him, and Aaron chuckled at that because he knew who it was and went to talk with him. Zara and I watched as they shook hands, but I couldn't hear what was said. Aaron looked really mad and waved us in. We all got into the house, and the guy was Haley and Heather's father. I will call him Odie, because he looks like Anthony Hopkins a bit. And he played Odin in the Marvel movies. Shut up, my post, my fake name's lol. But I won't give him the respect of being the father of Thor, so Odie it is. Odie saw me, and said it was good to see me again. We met once at Heather's birthday party, and then a few other wedding things. But I didn't interact with him much, and he was glad I was there because he wanted to talk with both of us. He turned to Zara and said, "Do you mind?" in a rude tone, and Zara just looked at him as if she were bored and looked to us, and Aaron said that she stays. Odie didn't like it, and was not shy about showing it. He asked us to drop our charges against Heather. I snorted without realizing it, and when he looked at me, I said there was no way. My head still hurts thinking about all she did. I guess he took that to be about Kim's attack. It wasn't, and he said it was Kim's choice to do that, and there is zero evidence to suggest Heather asked her to. Aaron just said, "Odie, why are you here? This could be a phone call." Odie said that Heather has been diagnosed with BP, and also that there are new medical concerns, and they think she has a medical condition. But with her being wanted, she can't get the treatment and therapy she needs even in her home state, where he and his wife are. He said if we drop our charges against her, he will take Heather back home, where she will not bother us ever again, and she can get all the treatment she needs. Aaron was quiet, and then asked, "How do you know?" And then asked how she even got diagnosed, why the medical concern. And then Zara said, "He's got her, and is hiding her, duh." Odie said it would be illegal for him to do that and asked, "Well, will you drop the charges? She is sick and needs help, and you know how the justice system works. She won't have a chance to get better," he pleaded with Aaron, one man to another, saying that's his daughter and Aaron has to still have some love for her, asserting he can't be heartless. I had it at that. I think it was the frustration and tiredness, but I just snapped. I told him we wouldn't tolerate guilt trips and manipulation. Heather went too far. Her health is not more important to my or my brother's physical safety or that of our friends. Absolutely not. Even so, we cannot drop all charges, only some, as the police made it clear some of this is not in our hands. I made a point to say that even if it were, I wouldn't drop Jaxt. She hurt my brother. She intended harm, we said. You were her friend. You turn on your friends like that? Or something like that, and I told him to get out. He said, "This isn't your house," so Aaron said, "Oh, it's mine," and what Francesca meant to say is get the FCK out. That was when Odie went from pleading to cold. It was so fast, it was scary. He said, "You don't want me as an enemy, young man." Zara asked him what that meant, and if he was threatening us, and he shrugged and left. Aaron then tells me he was almost happy to not hear from any of Heather's flying money or her in general, and now he needs a drink and a movie to forget about this. I know it was bad timing, but Zara looked at me kind of well, and I told him about the text message. He kept saying, "What?" or "Hold on, what do you mean?" as I explained, and then got so red I thought he would pop. I forwarded the text to his phone, and he checked his phone and just stood there. He then said something like, "Screw the movie," and that he needed a drink. He asked me when this all happened, and I told him, and that's when he got mad. "And you're telling me this now?" Zara tried to calm him, but then he realized she knew too, and he hasn't said much to either of us since. I've contacted him in person and via text, and all I get is an okay. All I have heard from him since is that Heather might have been found, and that he is going in today to learn more. So I guess I will update then. Small edit update. This is too small a thing to create an entire post, but too big to not tack on here. 2 things, actually. One is that I've decided to apologize to Aaron in person today after therapy. I made a promise to him and broke it, and it really, really hurt him. He is angry, but doesn't want to lash out, so he's just shut down entirely. Hopefully my therapist can help me find strategies to not make my apology about me and focus more on his feelings and how I've deeply hurt him. I will also come clean about my diagnosis, the anxiety attacks, and everything. No more pretending I am okay. I can't hide from my problems anymore. Plus, this has hit Zara hard. She's been crying. She hasn't been eating a lot. But the big tell is her dog whining around her, nudging her. Dogs know things, even if we try to hide them. Zara's been all smiles when she knows I am around, but I know they're fake. I just do. So I have to fix things with Aaron and own up to my bad choices. It's going to stink, but I love Aaron, Zara and Han, Sophia and Letty, and the friends who rally around me and help me and check in on me. They deserve to receive the same transparency and compassion they show. Wish me luck. The second thing is that Odie has called my phone 3 times. He left 2 messages. One just asked me to call him back. The second was him saying nothing new. I am Heather's friend, and it's cruel to not give her a fighting chance to fight BP. He then went on to text me links about BP, and how, when exacerbated, it can get quite nasty. To not make the same mistake twice, I immediately told Aaron and sent him the recordings and screenshots. He only texted back to ignore him, don't block him, and that we will have to go to the police about it, as it is harassment. His housecam got the whole conversation with Odie recorded, so he will use that as well. If you have advice on how to apologize, please share. I admit I am not good at them. I tend to explain or excuse the offense too much, to the point that the apology stops being an apology. I'm not proud of that and want to try to change it. Update. She had it coming. Chicago reference in the title. This time for those wondering. When I started updating, I never expected to update within 24 hours of another update. But in the wise words of my favorite meme, it can be like that sometimes. So I went to Aaron and apologized. I told him he had every right to be angry at me, and I was sorry for going back on a promise and keeping things from him. I told him that I know I've said it before, but it won't happen again, and I mean it. I came clean about the diagnosis and everything, and told him what my therapist said to me, which was that I apparently have an avoidant personality, and have to take active steps to unlearn the survival tactics I've used in the past. I am actively working on it in therapy, and will be taking medication just until all this crap is done. I said I don't have the expectation of his forgiveness because I know I hurt him, but I was very sorry. He hugged me and said he had forgiven me before I came by, and just wanted me to be okay. Then he tells me that he can't be mad at me for doing what he was doing. Heather had texted him too. He didn't bring it up to me for the same reasons I didn't bring my text up to him. He said we were on the phone, and I said something about being fine and having fun with Zara, and I sounded so happy that he didn't want to say anything to damage the calm and happiness in my voice. So I guess my pretending everything is fine backfired on both of us. I won't pretend to you that I wasn't upset, but the fact is, we are similar in too many ways. We both also have a lot of unlearning to do. We created a special chat with just him and me on it on an app for privacy. I won't name it, and we are calling it the Captain's Log. It's where we will share anything and everything we cannot say in person or are struggling to share. Heather was also arrested last night. She was found at the hospital. I don't know why she was there, but what I've been told is she went in under her mother's name. But the information didn't match up, so they called BS and ended up calling the cops. Because she is being charged with more than 1 count of violence, she is being held until she is presented to a judge to discuss whether she will be held until trial, or at least that is what I understand from what I've been told. Legal stuff isn't even in the realm of stuff I understand, but Aaron seemed to get it because of course I just nodded until he translated. The legal stuff was like Shireywook, and Aaron is like every character in Star Wars. The cameras planted in my home are not a charge they are leveling against her. I can't say more about it on Reddit yet. We were told by the police who came to the house, and I can't explain it any other way. But it's like holding a breath, forgetting for days, and then finally breathing again. I cried. Aaron cried. We were just so relieved. We took a moment to compose ourselves and went to my place to tell Zara and Han, and everyone cried all over again. Aaron asked to speak to Zara alone, and Han and I made plans as they chatted to grab snacks or drinks to celebrate. We suggested it to them, but they were too exhausted and suggested we do it tomorrow, so today. I will note that Zara and Aaron both seemed less sad after they talked. I don't know what was said, but I think they are good now. When I asked Zara, she smiled and said everything was starting to right itself again. I slept like a log last night and woke to my boyfriend making breakfast all cheery before eating with me and heading to work. I am just lounging around in my pajamas because, to update the Nat situation, I went to HR with a lot of email and text receipts from Nat. I had emailed him with a summary of what he said on the phone, and he replied, which I also sent along with my hospital records from the attack. My FMLA is approved, and I am looking for another job. Odie has not bothered us yet, but I suspect he knows better, as Aaron made it clear to the police that he has been harassing us. He pulled a, "It's self-defense if I've told him to leave us alone, and he comes back on one of our properties, right?" mentioning he has legal possession of weapons to defend himself. The police were pretty adamant we let them handle it, but Aaron did get that it would be self-defense if we were afraid of bodily harm if Odie returned to our properties, as he is trespassing on Aaron's by legal standards, and we are working with a lawyer to draft papers for me. We are inviting a couple other friends to have dinner tonight to celebrate everything. And for the first time in a while, I feel peaceful just sitting at home. I have a cup of tea and a sweet doggo at my feet. In a perfect world, I would have guaranteed not to be bothered by the Sith ever again. But in the real world, trials and no contact orders take time. So I will take my small pocket of peace, while I have it, nap on the couch, play some Baldur's Gate 3, then get dressed and celebrate with my family. Aaron and Han have both taken off tomorrow, so it will be a long weekend due to it also being Easter. Happy Easter to all who celebrate. My chosen family, and I don't really celebrate the holiday, but we will still have a family-style dinner. Aaron insisted on it. Willa number 1 will also be invited because I will be actively advocating for her to have my position once I find a new job and resign. Last, but not least, Kim is out on bail until her trial. Don't ask me how that happened. All charges are still stacked against her, but she is agreeing to stay away from me and my family by court order and restraining order, or she goes back. I lock all my doors and have a camera system similar to Aaron's at my place, as well as dash cams on my car. Plus, a Rottweiler with a bark that could scare a poltergeist. I still train with Zara as well. I refuse to be made to feel unsafe in my home ever again. While there are still steps to take, I am happy to take a long weekend with my now large family. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and holiday. I will update if anything happens. Update. My brother and I aren't sure about second chances or closure. But this might be our only chance, and I don't know what to do. I F30s am writing this post on my phone, sitting on my bed, after I have cried all the tears I had in me. I am using fake names, but keeping the names consistent with my other posts. The Wookiee poo has hit the fan recently. My grandfather is dead, and of course I am sad. But I haven't seen him in years after he smacked me in the face and screamed that I was dead to him, demonic. And to never come back after I came out as bisexual and tried to introduce my first girlfriend. He went to NC with me, but tried to keep in contact with my brother M30's Aaron. Aaron cut off contact with him in solidarity with me. My grandfather tried to reach out to him a few times, but Aaron would only tell him that if I am not related to grandfather, then neither am he. We got word of my grandfather's death from his wife, Zoe F60-ish, who found Aaron's information via an old friend of ours that Aaron is still in touch with. My chosen family had Easter at my house. It was the first time that this family that we have kind of hodgepodge together had a holiday just with us. It was a really good day, and I have so many beautiful memories from it that I will cherish for the rest of my life. Everything was perfect until everyone got a little bit too wine drunk, and some had Ubered home or had rides with their sober companions. It was just my brother, my boyfriend, and my best friend, and they all decided to stay over and sober up before heading home in the morning. Aaron woke me up early Monday, and he had been crying. He told me grandfather passed away last week. I was shocked and sad and cried as well. He wasn't a good man or parent to us, but my mother is dead, and my father walked out when I was small. I always hoped one day grandfather would call me, and we could somehow have some closure. I don't think reconciliation is the word. Aaron let me have a cry and waited until I had calmed down, and we talked in the kitchen over tea. He then mentioned Zoe told him she has also been in touch with our father. Anakin. Yes, I am big on sci-fi. So sue me because grandfather left things for all of us, even me. And she warned us that Anakin would want to discuss it all with us. There is legal mumbo jumbo, but the short answer is that my parents never officially divorced. My understanding is that when Anakin left, he was nowhere to be found to have papers served, and mom focused all she could on her health, on us, and on work. When mom passed away, her will was pretty ironclad, and Anakin never showed up anyway. I don't know if I remember this myself, or if I had been told this so many times that it simply feels like a memory. But the last time Aaron and I saw Anakin was the night he left, and I begged him not to go. I don't answer calls from numbers I don't know, and with the holiday, I hadn't checked messages. Aaron and I both checked our phones, and I indeed had messages, too. One started with a voice I kind of recognized saying, "Wow, crazy, you sound so grown up." "That's crazy, man. It's Pop. I know it's been a while. We have a lot to catch up on. Call me back. Love you, princess." And he left his number and email, and said he also found me on Facebook, and to check my messages. And the second voicemail said he found my other social media, and how beautiful I am and look like mom, and that he was coming to town to see me. According to his messages, he flew in right before Easter, and was basically in town until next week. I got so angry. Mom called me princess. It felt wrong coming from the guy who was never there in any clear memory I ever had. He wasn't there when mom got really sick, any of the times she was in the hospital, or when she passed away. Not for her, not for us. Where was he when we struggled to figure out adulthood far younger than planned? When we got our first jobs, went to college, navigated our first heartbreaks, and had my health scare, any of it. But now he's Pop, and I'm princess. I am in my effing 30s. Aaron will be in his 40s in a few years. Like, what the hell is he so casual about? Aaron was just staring at me, and asking how I wanted to handle this. I shrugged, and asked him the same. He said, "Well, he called you, not me." And it was the first time I talked about this that I realized how hurt he was. It made my blood boil. I told him we needed to make a choice together, and he said he wants to hear what the guy has to say, and that it may provide closure for us. I won't lie, I hate the idea. But we didn't get closure with my grandfather, and it stings. F me. But I have regrets, so it may be worth it to hear Anakin out. So I said okay and texted Anakin we'd meet Tuesday. Well, it's Tuesday. I have been dragging my feet to even get out of bed. I can't stop crying. I don't want to move. I know I am far too emotional about it, so I could use advice. This timing is terrible. Aaron and I are going through enough. I won't outline it all here as it's in other posts, but we are still reeling from the actions of Aaron's ex-fiancée, and I doubt either of us has the capacity for Anakin too. How do I even go about this? How do I just chat with a guy who walked out on us? On Mom? How am I supposed to even keep my composure? Update. Let the good times roll. Hi everyone. I won't get into the issues of my father here. I know some of you found that post, and I have already received truly kind messages. This post will have as many good vibes as I can muster. I admit, I am trying not to think of my therapy session today, or the crap show I expect this evening to be, so this is also a nice distraction. Here it goes. I have good medical news I can finally share. After my first post, I had relapsed into my eating disorder, and it was tough. I felt ashamed and didn't tell anyone until Aaron, and I made a promise of having no secrets, so I told him. He's been really supportive, and I have gained my lost weight back, and am finally at 128 pounds. Still not enough given my height, but I am past the line of healthy weight. I hope to stay around 135-140, which my doctor says is the goal she has for me. I am finally feeling slightly more like myself, and am feeling more confident in my skin again. I know it will take work to maintain, but I don't feel so alone anymore, and I think I will be okay. Easter was lovely. This whole chosen family thing is the best. Sophia struggles with her family due to being gay, and Letty's works through holidays as they are all in law and apparently very busy, so they both came and we chatted about their upcoming wedding. Insane that the time is coming rapidly upon us. Aaron was able to get a refund from the bridal dress store via credit, and said Sophia can have it as he will have no use of it. She cried her eyes out as her family refused to help her, so they were going to settle on a cheaper dress for her. But it turns out she can get the one she's really been eyeing. Han and Aaron bonded a lot, and that was nice to witness. Then there was Zara, who took it upon herself to be the kitchen master. She cooked and baked like a tornado, and we had a lovely Cajun Afro-Latin-style meal. Also, I am happy to confirm Aaron and Zara are indeed all good now. He spent a lot of time in the kitchen helping her, and they would chat and laugh. It was awesome to see my big brother, our big and bad protector, struggling to keep up with silly tasks like whisking or cooking rice in a pot and not a rice maker. I have an interview for a similar job to the one I have now, but it pays better and is mostly remote, but for 1 season a year and occasional meetings. I am excited for it, as it's a much bigger organization and the benefits look amazing. Lastly, Heather and Odie. They are barred from speaking to us or reaching out to us. No contact orders are in place. Kim will be testifying against Heather, and Heather is using the defense that she was unwell and that her mental illness caused her actions. I cannot belittle the issues around BP. It's not my struggle, so I can't speak to it. But she caused a lot of harm, so I struggle to have too much sympathy. But for what it's worth, so long as she stays away from me and my family and is probably kept to the orders, I hope she gets the utmost care. Aaron, on the other hand, let's say he has his own opinions on the matter. I almost forgot to mention that I have decided to get a dog. Zara volunteers with the shelter she got hers from, and we looked at a few this weekend, and I am in love with 2, but I will only adopt 1 for now. I applied for the older one, as older dogs have a harder time getting adopted. She's a snuggle bug, and I have a lot of love to share. I am so grateful for the encouraging words and ongoing support. This community feels like an extension of my family. I will update on the father situation when I can, but otherwise, I hope every single one of you had a great weekend and is having a great week. I wanted to share this sunshine with you all, as I share more of my storms with you than anything. Thanks for helping me keep sane. Okay, I am off to therapy, lol. This should be interesting. Update. I don't know where to even begin, so I guess it will have to be at therapy. My therapist gave me some advice and tools before meeting my father with Aaron. I am also thankful for the advice given here, and I took a lot of it on board. Aaron and I arrived early. I think he was eager to get this started, but I couldn't tell if it was so it could be over faster or what. I really didn't want to be there. I told my brother as much, and he said we could just leave if I wanted, but I chose to stay. Honestly, we made it this far. We prepared and processed so much so quickly for this. Let's do the damn thing, you know. Aaron and I are chatting. It's a restaurant bar place, and it's dog friendly, so Zara gave us permission to bring her sweet dog on along and winked at us. And if she bites him, oh well, and laughed. God, she's a real one. My father arrived, and he greeted me cheerily. To be honest, I didn't recognize him. I just saw an older black man approaching straight towards us, calling me princess. He reached for a hug, and I put my hands up to stop him and said that my name is Francesca. He paused but smiled still. He shook Aaron's hand and introduced himself. Hi, I am Anakin, Francesca's papa. Are you her boyfriend or husband? Aaron's face paled entirely. Then he turned red. He honestly looked like he was going to cry, and then he steadied himself and said, It's me, Aaron. I guess it's been a while indeed. This threw Anakin off. He looked at Aaron for a long moment, but he seemed much less warm and said, Oh, I didn't know you were coming. Aaron said, Because I wasn't invited. Anakin turned to me and said, I guess you were. I took the time to ask why Aaron wasn't invited, and only I and Anakin said he wanted to talk to me privately. I asked why not privately with Aaron as well, and he dodged. Sloppily. We sat, and he tried to start with, How is life? What do you do? But I warned about this. I just asked why he was here and what he wanted. After all, I hadn't seen him since I was too small to tie my own shoes. What brought him in now? Just my grandfather's death. He tries to dodge small talk, and I noticed something odd. He was only really asking about me and my life, not Aaron. I was blunt and asked why. You haven't asked once about Aaron, why? But Aaron said he knew. Because he was the adopted one, and I was Anakin's miracle baby. I sat back and just asked, is that true? Anakin said that he wanted to talk to his child first, and then he would have asked about Aaron. That mom and he were blessed with a real child of their own, and that I was his little girl. He tried to say that it doesn't mean he doesn't care about Aaron. Of course he does. But there is something special about a father and a daughter and their bond. I got furious, but held my calm and said, Bond? What bond do you think I have with you? I don't even know you. Mom raised us, and I will call my mom Selene for this. My father looked at me dead in the eye and said, well, you were my favorite. Aaron was Selene's, and he laughed as if it were a joke, and I stood up. Mom loved us both. You were gone. If we aren't equal to you, you can leave. And I went to sit at the bar. Aaron and I talked for about 30 minutes, and I gave Aaron some space after catching his eye. He was by my side by the time I finished my whiskey and said we could go. But I wanted to stay and talk about anything at all. But this posse he was so lucky to not share DNA with. Aaron agreed. And we hung out. But after 2 rounds, he looked just sad, and we went home. He told me and Zara at my place that Anakin knew we had left things for grandfather. He told Aaron that he was surprised that I was left with anything after being disowned. Anakin was not left with any money. He was left an old record collection and one of his grandfather's cars. The rest is left to me, our mom, and Aaron. Because of mom's paperwork, that means it's split between my brother and me. I can't imagine how I feel about my grandfather, leaving me anything after hating me so much for so long, or even my mom. I think he had the will as it was for decades and never bothered to change it. It doesn't really matter. Aaron thinks Anakin wanted money, though he didn't ask for it outright. He apologized to Aaron, saying he was an old man, and sometimes he said things the wrong way, and backtracked a lot, saying that Aaron is his adopted son, his buddy, and he is proud of him. Aaron said that last bit made him want to vomit. He is now in my kitchen cooking with Zara, who had choice words about the whole thing. She literally got up and said, F that guy. We're eating a home-cooked meal and drank into not having him as a parent, and dragged my brother into the kitchen. I opted to sit with the dog and read y'all's messages. Anakin has left me a voicemail and texted an apology, and he wants to try to have a do-over and explain to us both. He said he loves us and is bad at showing it. He wants a chance, and that's it. BTW Zara dog didn't even get near Anakin and just glared at him and slept by Aaron's feet the entire time. She's so empathetic. I think she knew he needed her more than I did. God, I can't wait to have a dog myself. We don't deserve them. Edit. Zara shouted for me to add the quote from the show Supernatural. Family ain't only blood. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends. My narcissistic sister tried to end me, and my family brushed it off as a joke. Now everyone realizes how messed up she is. So, a little background. I am the second youngest of 5 kids. My older siblings are 2 brothers and 1 older sister, whom we'll call X for the purposes of this post. X and I have a 5-year age gap, and as a result, we never really had that sisterly bond you would expect most sisters to have. Growing up, I was always a burden to her, and anytime it was my turn to pick the family movie, or really anything, she would get upset. The reason is that she had control issues as early as 9, so I'm guessing you can already see where I'm going with this. I'm currently 18 about to turn 19 woohoo. And X turned 24 earlier this year. Her boyfriend Y proposed to her on a family beach day earlier in June of this year. It was one of those big white letters and rose petals proposals that he set up before my family arrived. She was thrilled, said yes, and my parents were very happy along with my older siblings, the youngest is 4, so I don't think she understood what was happening. Now here's the drama. Since the proposal, she has gone into full bridezilla mode. At the behest of my mom, X made me a bridesmaid. So I'm roped into all the BS. So far, these are the demands my dear sister has made. All bridesmaids are to pay for their own dress, a $300 dress. In blush pink, shoes, hair, and makeup. All bridesmaids need to attend all wedding and bachelorette events, including A. The Bachelorette Spa Day, $800 each. B. The Bachelorette Vacation Weekend to Toronto and stay at the Fairmont Hotel $1,000 weekend just for hotel. C. The dress appointments even if just for the bride. All alterations covered by the person themselves. $300 dress plus approx. $300 alterations, etc. D. All things to do with the wedding cake, venue, catering, etc. They need to attend. For the cake and food tasting, they all need to pay $25. The guests and the bridal groom party need to pay $150 to reserve their spots. And gifts have to be either cash, a check, or from the list of registry items. She has a spreadsheet of what everyone is gifting, and has said she will return items that aren't from her registry or match her theme. My mom says it's bride anxiety. I say it's just my sister trying to control everything, because she wants a December wedding on a ski hill. Blah. Anyway, I figure if people are interested, I could update periodically on what happens. Thanks for reading. Edit. I realized I didn't include the controlling parts. My bad. Here they are. 1. All bridesmaids need to go to hair and skin appointments every 6 weeks to ensure our hair and skin are flawless for pictures. It's out of pocket too. 2. Anyone with tattoos needs to cover them. Our dresses will do that. They go to the neck, ankles, and wrists. The bride wants to be the only one sleeveless, showing her tattoos and colorful hairstyle. Either we need to get our hair dyed to a natural color, or wear a wig at our expense. 3. The dresses only come in sizes 0 to 10, a pretty good range for most. But those who don't fit are expected to try to lose weight. I'm a size 12, and already my sister is calling me fat. She's sent me a keto diet book through Amazon. 4. No one vendors is to communicate directly with the bride or groom. It has to go through us first. She made a Gmail with last name wedding, which we all have access to, and we aren't supposed to ask her if something is okay. We should just know this is the part that stresses mom out. 5. We need to remind the guests that they need to pay a deposit of $150 to save their spot. And if we don't get it, they don't come. We also need them to confirm what they'll purchase from the registry, or the amount they'll give. Edit 2. Y'all are making me realize my family isn't normal. I'm going to look into therapy with my university and see if I can move into residence earlier. I want to thank the person who private messaged me about getting my mom off my bank account and also getting my birth certificate, etc. I think I'm going to do that after I talk to the people at the bank. I texted my mom, I'm at work right now if her dad, and I could talk about it while X was gone to her fiancé's for the night. I'm hoping to show my mom and dad this post to help them understand where I'm coming from. Edit 3. I'm going to take some time away from this alt, just because a lot of you are right. This isn't normal. Our relationship as a family is not normal. I called my aunt while I was at work. For those of you who don't know, she's my godmother, and she thinks my mom is nuts, and we talked about it. She's encouraging me to talk to my parents about everything, not only the wedding, but favoritism, etc. since childhood, and she's also on standby in case things go to SHD. My shift at work finishes in a few more hours. Then I'll go home and pack a quick bag of stuff for my aunt to grab before my parents and I talk. Relevant comments. Overall, she's going to have to accept that finances rule a lot of people's lives, and that if she's not going to come back down to earth, it's going to keep people from being able to participate like you. OP. That's what I try to tell her, but she won't listen. Her fiancé makes $120K plus a year as a tech dude, and she's an accountant making $100K herself. So it's easy for her to afford this. Tell your mom and sister that you won't participate until someone pays all of your costs. Your mom should not try to keep the peace when your sister is a raging harpy. I hope her fiancé backs out. OP, he won't. He loves her spice. He's a very calm man though, so they match really well. He's the only one who can calm her down. How does his family feel about the admission fee to his wedding? OP. It's normal on his side of the family. They say it's normal in Italian families, but I just found out it isn't. This is insane. I completely agree with you, OP. OP. The problem for me is that I can't afford it without going into debt for my student loans. Interest on student loans right now is 26%, so I'm scared to be in debt. Tell your mom you don't have the sort of money being a bridesmaid for a sister will involve. Tell sis she is free to include you outside of the wedding party. You will probably find that you will lead the charge. OP. She has 13 bridesmaids, 12 bridesmaids, 1 mo, and it's to match the fraternity class of her fiancé. He had 13 people he became brothers with in his class. I don't know what it means, but it's special, so if I drop out, 2 of the guys would need to walk together. Let them. OP. I should. Important comment by OP. I have talked to her. She says it's my job, as her sister, to save up. Mom and dad are paying for the wedding almost $100,000, so they can't give me the $2,000 for my expenses. I'm going to university in the fall, and my tuition is $17,000. Weird parental choices here. $100K for a wedding, but let a child pay their own tuition. Did your sister go to college? I'd be asking my parents to pay my college fees, etc. and telling them I don't want a $100,000 wedding, equal to the kids. Also, if they can spring for $100,000, then what's another 2? OP. Tuition has always been ours to pay. Mom and dad saved money for everyone's wedding or honeymoon. Update part 1. 1 week later. Firstly, I just wanted to apologize for how long this has taken. My parents originally planned to talk that night, but mom said she wasn't feeling well and decided to go to sleep early around 6 p.m. and that feeling stayed for a while. We then got busy moving my sister into her fiancé's place, and by the time everything settled, my parents forgot we had something to discuss and kind of brushed it off to the side. We finally had the conversation 2 days ago, and I needed a day to think and just react to things. So it turns out my dad never knew the whole story. He knew he was responsible for paying for my sister's dress and a portion of the wedding or honeymoon. The reason for this is that my parents told me dad confirmed with bank records that my parents had been setting up 25K accounts for myself and each of my siblings. The rule was that these accounts could be used for anything once we turned 19 and went off to post-secondary. It was our money to use. I just turned 19, and my dad was getting ready to sign the money over to me when we had this conversation, which caused a bit of a blow-up. But right now I need to give some background information I was given. Right after my sister got engaged, she apparently had a conversation with my mom about how she always felt like the child was left out. She's used this line before, so I do believe my mom fell for it and was guilt-tripping. As a result of a very long conversation, my mom figured that she could divert some of the funds from all the kids' accounts to pay for my sister's wedding. For those wondering, my 2 older brothers are in the military. They aren't married yet, and they live on base. They never use their $25K because the Army in Canada pays for your education, housing, etc. So my mom had $50,000 at her disposal. Then, combined with my sister's and my $25K, it would have been $100K. Mom figured that because I had $17,000 saved up, she could just give me $15,000 later for a car or a house payment. Or wedding blah. Sister did this because, again, she is a master manipulator. Side note. Thank you to the wonderful redditors who sent me to various subreddits for narcissism and support, along with those who sent articles on it to me and a possible narcissist. She used some of my mom's mental and physical health conditions against her. When I was born, my mom went through very bad PPD, resulting in her leaving a treatment facility for 4 months, leaving my sister, 2 brothers, me, and dad behind. My 2 older brothers at the time were 9 and 7 at the time, and me only a few months. Sister, for reference, was 5 or just shy of 5. I honestly don't care to calculate. Since my brothers were trouble, my dad had his hands full, and a live-in nanny did the stuff for me, so my sister had little to no attention at an age where attention is important. I think that triggered the bad sides of her to come out. While the nanny did help sister with the basics: food, water, bath, clothes, and a little play, she wasn't a replacement for mom. When mom came back, my sister had a huge grudge, but not against mom but against me. I was the reason mom left, which led to her trying to smother me with a pillow. Mom caught her in time, and it was a funny story for us as a family. It turns out that's a coping mechanism. Over my childhood, my sister has used manipulation to get what she wants, and she did it for the wedding too. Mom felt bad and decided to give her little dove everything she desired. Common things I heard growing up were, "You always give me XYZ, I want this." Proceeds to have a meltdown as my sister grew up. It wasn't little toys and candy anymore, but girls go on trips. As a result of this, my dad and I grew very close. He's my best friend, my sister, and I had a decent relationship when I was 12-14. But it changed again when mom got pregnant with my youngest sister. It was an accident, lol, and I became the target again for her rage and abuse. While I know it doesn't excuse a lot of things, I figured it would be important to give you the whole story. Update Part 2. So, now that the background information is complete, here's what happened. A day after my sister moved out, I asked my mom and dad to please finally have the conversation with me. Mom was feeling better, so we sat down and started talking. I told them how I felt, how much of a financial toll it would be on me, how it wasn't fair, etc. Well, dad blew up. He didn't know about the $100,000, or the things the sisters were doing, etc. He didn't like the fact that mom used a lot of "your father and I agree" talk, even though they hadn't. I showed group chat screenshots. We worked through the wedding issue. I don't have to attend, and the $25K for me issue dad is signing it over early. Then I was asked to go to my room for a bit, because dad and mom wanted to talk. They settled the budget issue on their own. Dad then asked why I didn't feel comfortable talking to them earlier, so I showed them this post. My dad snapped. He immediately called my sister, and told her to come here ASAP, because he needed to talk to her, and would not accept excuses. She said she would be here in 4 hours because she was with her fiancé and his parents. Dad pressed, and she hung up and blocked him. Dad told me to go to my room once again, but to leave my phone so they could go over the post and see the comments. I don't know exactly what happened, but mom came to talk to me later. She then told me about the PPD, etc. I didn't know about it earlier. We solved our issues, and I finished by asking if my sister would go to therapy. Because mom was convinced that the 4-month leave caused this stuff in her, she said she'd try but couldn't force it. I told her if her sister doesn't go, I'm going NC with her and possibly LC with mom. Dad then joined the conversation and assured me I would get my money, and I wouldn't have to go to a wedding if I didn't want to. Since her sister is charging $150 per guest, she can pay for her grandson's wedding through that. Soon-to-be Bill and his family aren't paying for SHD apparently, so now they have to, or his sister doesn't get to have her ski hill wedding. Speaking of the $150 fee, y'all were right. It was her sister who concocted the whole thing and told mom it was an Italian thing. We talked to Sister Mill when she dropped her sister off. Sister doesn't drive, and Mill was shocked that sister had said that. There is apparently a money dance, but there is no $150 fee. So on to what happened when my sister came back. She came after 5 hours, and while Mill was there, she was sweet as pie. But when Mill left, oh lord, the gates to hell broke. She demanded why dad disturbed the peaceful evening, and demanded he drive her back. Dad said he didn't care and to sit down. She refused, and they fought. Finally, she sat down after dad started pulling out various tricks, including money or telling Mill about her true nature, which I guess her fiancé hasn't seen much of. I was excused from my room again. There was a lot of angry yelling back and forth, and a lot of manipulation from her sister, including threats of LCNC, or not seeing possible grandkids in the future. She was trying to get mom to go back to the original plan, the $100,000 plan, and mom and dad weren't budging. The fighting continued and stopped when my dad yelled, saying mom isn't her punching bag and her PPD is not her fault, and if she was that angry about it, go to therapy. After that, I was called back down, and we went over all the issues. Starting with the keto book, my sister tried to defend me, saying I was fat and lazy, but my dad defended me. Sister started to cry, and mom told dad to be a little softer, which he did. We finally discussed everything, and I felt like part of the family instead of like a punching bag. Sister eventually got an Uber and left because she was being attacked. We're going to wait until Christmas time, when brothers are back in town, so we can all discuss what we need as a family to go forward and be healthy. But it will most likely be therapy or cutting her out. Mom and Dad are still figuring out the full budget issue with my sisters-in-laws. My parents told them that for such a wedding to happen, everyone would need to contribute. In-laws agreed that $100,000 for a wedding is insane. Last I heard, her sister will get her $15K for the wedding, which is basically $5K because of the $10K dress since it's already ordered. The other $10K is being held for something tangible, and then her in-laws are being generous and helping with $15K, $10 to the wedding, $5 to the honeymoon. As for my schooling, Dad and I are going to the bank tomorrow, and we're going to pay the cancellation fee for the loan I had to take out. The loan only officially starts when I start school, so thankfully the cancellation fee is very small. My dad is paying for the fee because he admits that I should have never had to take the loan out. My parents agreed that my first year of university, along with housing costs, would not come out of my budget $17K or $25K, so they would pay themselves. The full amount that they budgeted for me is going to be transferred into something called a TFSA for later in life. Well, Mom and I still have a somewhat rocky relationship, and my sister absolutely hates me. She blamed me for everything, and said that I had caused irreparable damage to her relationship with her fiancé and in-laws. Because of this, she's banned me from the wedding and from her life. I honestly don't care. I don't really see it as losing a sister. I see it as losing a bully. I made a promise to my mom and dad that I would never treat my younger sister like that. I'm going to be the role model she deserves, and I'm going to be her protector like my brothers and my father were for me. I think I covered everything that needs to be covered. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm very thankful for the subreddit for teaching me what a real family is about, and for teaching me about boundaries and communication. Have an amazing life, you gorgeous humans. Updated relevant comments. One thing I want to bring up that seemed to be blown over. Your sister tried to murder you. That is a big deal. I hope that in therapy, you take the time to talk about this. It's a huge deal. It's traumatic, and the fact that your parents used it as a funny excuse is not okay. It's awful. And I sincerely hope that you really force your mom to address why she allowed this behavior to happen. Why didn't you put your sister in therapy right then and there? It's important to get answers to these questions, and your sister owes you an apology. You may also want to consider making sure her fiancé knows about the money she demanded. He deserves to know what he is getting into. OP, Mom and Dad didn't make it a funny story at first. It was the sister mainly saying, "Oh, it was a joke, it was a joke." When we were older, of course, because my parents never left me alone with my older sister. Either they were in the room or my eldest brother was beside me. It was only after I was 10, 11 and my sister, and I started to have an okay relationship that the joke was made. I forgave her and honestly thought it was a joke. I now know it wasn't, and she has hated me since day one. As for the therapy, I forgot to mention she did go from 7 to 10. Originally, it was just a doctor who spoke to her once a month from 4.5-ish to 6.5-ish. But she learned how to say exactly what they wanted to hear, so they discontinued the need for visits. My dad was okay with this. My mom wanted the second opinion, and found the best child psychologist in Alberta for my sister. And they took her on for 3, almost 4 years. Towards the end, they said they taught her everything, and helped her with trauma, etc. But I feel like she just became really good at telling them what they wanted to hear. As for her fiancé, he knows. I texted him a long text and voice message, and we talked on the phone for 2 hours. At the end, he just kind of shrugged it off. In hindsight, I think he was in on it. He also displays some concerning traits. Do your parents feel like they failed your sister by letting her go on like this for so long? She was neglected and tried smothering you with a pillow, and it was a family joke. I feel like your parents are dumping all the mistakes they made on her when they're just as involved. OP. I definitely do think it played a role. She showed signs of some concerning behavior as a toddler, pushing, biting, or purposely hurting my brothers or kids in daycare. But I think the thing that really broke her was not having a mom. Dad did the boys, the nanny did me mainly and her, and my aunt handled the motherly things for her. But she's no replacement for mom. The problem is that while things did get better when I was 12, sister talked to me about why she hated me, how she thought I was taking up attention, etc. At 14, she started hating me again because little sister was in mom's belly. I do know that my sister went to therapy from ages 7-10 because she had a grudge against mom, and when mom stepped in to protect a then 3-6-year-old me, my sister would take it out on the house mom, or would yell at the dog. Yeah, your dad doesn't just get out the blame by saying he decided not to raise her because he wants to raise the boys the same way your mom doesn't get to cater to her every demand. This is literally awful parenting you're describing, which made your sisters insane. I understand you like your dad, but from her perspective, I think they both created her and are a huge part of the reason you spent your life being bullied. They failed both of you so badly by not seeing the severity of her apology. She never stopped being that neglected at 5 years old. OP, I mean, it's not like dad chose to only raise the boys. I mean it in the sense that we only had one car. The boys were both in football, hockey, and lacrosse. They were always on the road. And when dad was there, and he would take sister out on father-daughter dates 2 times a week, she would get upset if she didn't get a new toy or a new gadget. She loved these things called pixel checks. Even when she stopped using them and I wanted to play at 3, she suddenly became very possessive over them. And at month 2, mom was allowed to stay for weekends with us. and she would stay with her sister watching movies, braiding hair, reading stories, etc. I honestly don't think that is neglect. They stepped in when she showed worsening signs, and I was never ever alone with my sister because of the pillow incident. They took her to therapy, and the doctors gave her a clean bill of health. I honestly just think she's a master manipulator. OP in another comment. To show you what she's like, she stole her fiancé from another girl she knew, all because she wanted him and didn't care about the other girl. Therapists often wait until a person is over 18 to diagnose BPD, hoping that a child will grow out of the behaviors of an adult. People with BPD are often master manipulators and can fool therapists by masking their behaviors, lying about their actions, and lying about how they feel in a very believable way, almost like an actor playing a role. They always have a reason in their heads for why they are doing what they do, which can fool others who do not see both sides of the story. Well, SHT, I'm about to go down another rabbit hole. My sister will refuse to go to a doctor though. Unless it was to prove she was right all along. B didn't even let me have a Lalaloopsy doll without stealing it and burning the damn thing. Going to NC seems to be the best option for people around those with untreated BPD. Don't feel bad about it. Your life will be much more peaceful without the drama and crazy accusations. Don't worry about getting your sister into therapy either. Therapy only works if you are honest and willing to change. Often, people with BPD are neither. You should look into therapy for yourself. I did, and it really helped me, along with reading forums for families dealing with these kinds of issues. Parents are often enablers who try to keep the family together out of a desire for normalcy. But having a disordered sibling is anything but normal. Once you recognize it's not normal, you can begin to heal. OP. Yeah, Mom has a therapy session this Monday for the money and guilt trip thing. Her and her dad have couples therapy after. I'm starting therapy on my own for a plethora of things. My brothers. Well, they're hundreds of kilometers away, so I don't know what's going on with them. And my sister is playing house. My little sister wasn't there when the argument happened. We made sure she had a play date with her friend from daycare. Update. 3 months later. Hey everyone. I figured I would update you since it's been a very long time. I apologize. I lost the login to this account, but just found it. So on to the update. Family therapy is going really well. My 2 brothers were given temporary leave to come back to Canada. They were both stationed overseas for a bit. I believe they have to go back after this to help the process along. Our family is getting back on track, and my mom and I are closer than ever. It honestly feels like I have my best friend back. As for my sister, honestly, I don't know what's going on with her. A friend of mine still follows her social media, and everything seems well. The wedding was moved up to November 26th instead of December 17th, like she originally planned. She and her fiancé have bought a place. Apparently, and this is rumored, she's pregnant. She's cut all of us off, and her fiancé's family is talking SHT about us. But we're holding strong. In other, more exciting news, I'm loving Ottawa. I go back home once a month for in-person therapy, but I also have 3 virtual sessions monthly. On top of that, my oldest brother is getting married. So while I lost a terrible sister, I gained an amazing sister. She's so sweet, texts me every couple of days, gets me Uber, and eats orders when I'm down, despite being provinces away. She's so sweet. She asked if I would feel comfortable being her Mo. She's an only child and her mom passed away, and I agreed. So by this time next year, I'll have an official new sister. There's not a whole lot else to say, but I also have a boyfriend. He's in the army too, couldn't get away from it. I guess, and very supportive and loving. Our 1-month anniversary is in January, and I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, thank you so much Reddit. You are all amazing, beautiful, and soulful humans, and I hope you all have prosperous, healthy, and fruitful lives. I love you all. Sincerely, Cute Quarter 19399. Update. Post-wedding update. Hello everyone. A lot of people wanted to know what happened at the wedding yesterday. So I will provide the update. My family and I were banned from going. But my cousins and friends and her husband's family filled me in, so not a whole lot happened at the ceremony. The Mog mother of groom showed up in an off-white dress, and a few people brought their kids despite it being a child-free ceremony. But no true drama happened until the reception. I somewhat feel bad for my sister because of this. But the Mog invited one of the groom's exes, I guess to hope that it would break them up. But it didn't work. She tried to get between my sister and her now husband. But her husband, and I give him props for this, told her to leave. Honestly, all around, it wasn't dramatic. They made it to the altar, and are leaving for their honeymoon today or tomorrow. But one thing that was confirmed is that my sister is definitely pregnant. At the end of the wedding speeches, the groom said his with a slideshow, and the last slide was an ultrasound picture, and baby last name due June 2023. Sorry, it isn't much of an update. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.